Yes, everybody. Welcome back to flatcapeurotalk, and get used to that Champions League tune, everybody. Definitely get used to it. But David, good to have you on here. Kieran was on last time. We are going to try to do some sort of kind of weekly sort of conversation. This one I think is going to be a bit shorter. We don't really have as much kind of transfer news to discuss this time. So I figured, we kind of dip into maybe a different sort of discussion and kind of talk about which sort of player might be the next £100 million player. If you were to make maybe a £5 bet that would turn into a £100 million bet, maybe you would find this conversation kind of interesting. But David, you haven't been on this channel in kind of a bit of a while. I feel like for any of at least the live shows. So how you doing, my man?
Yeah, no, I'm absolutely buzzing. I'm not going to lie, I feel a little bit out of my depth because I know how much football and how many players you and Kieran track across the season. So I do feel a little bit out of my depth, but I'm buzzing to be here, Jacko.
Good to have you, Dave. Good to have you. And Kieran, how you doing, my man?
I'm good. Happy to be back on the channel. It's such a short turnaround. Got the call up. So I'm excited to be back.
Making another one, it's almost, you could turn it into a Sessignon, situation, and maybe be liked by the manager. It could be a Tanganga situation, and then, might be on loan, next season. So hopefully it turns out good. But so far, so good, I would say. Let's greet a bit of the Flat Cap Army before we get into it. Moondog saying Harry Winks. Probably, I don't know, at some stage, maybe he's going to go. Maybe we might even pay a team $100 million to get rid of him at some stage. SOF saying Romero will be £100 million player. That will be a conversation to be had, my man, before we even get into the tier maker. We do have a tier maker lined up, which I always find to be very, very fun. I just did one with Sean the other night. Aman Arnasia, one of the original Black Cap Army members, saying next £100 million player is Rashawn Maturin. And I looked him up when I saw this comment, and apparently he's in our youth academy and our under 18. So I guess somebody look out for the future there. Anybody have any idea? I guess, Dave, when we get that Spurs TV subscription, we will know about him in the future.
Yeah.
Mick Hermelok saying, good evening, lads. Come on, you Spurs. Big up, Mick. Good to see you. DeBottom Duda's in the house, of course, saying big up Jack and David and Kieran. Big up DeBottom Duda. Good to see you. Kin Liefeld saying Ducky will be a £100 million player. He is in the list. He is in the list, Kin. SOF says, doesn't look like Bastoni is happening. I would keep the faith. SOF. I would keep it. Christoph Martinson, Romero, if McGuire costs 80 million, then Romero surely is a £100 million player. Bellingham, Kulusevski, Gavi. It's again, Christoph, I'm really looking forward to the center back £100 million conversation, because are they really worth it? Because we did see Man United paid 80 million for a fridge. So that does make you think maybe Romero could be worth more than that. But big up, Christoph. Welsh Gal saying, big up, lads. Good to see you. Good to see you, Welsh Gal. Catman Jess saying, big up, Jack, David, Kieran, and the Flat Cap Army. Hello, this is, I subscribed today. Appreciate it. Let me know your name if you're able to, so I can at least, call you by a name, because unfortunately I can't translate it, but good to have you in here. Good to have you in here. Pete Dubs, Flat Cap Army, Dave, going very wide, going very far and wide. Pete Dubs saying, what's up, boys? We need to keep up the business. I mean, we do need to, because that's why we're probably not even discussing the business right now. Not too much to discuss, I'll be honest. Catman Just saying, hey, David, are you going to do a watch along Saturday for Ireland versus Armenia?
Do you know what? Yes, I will, Catman, just for you.
Just have a little private party with Catman too.
No, I'll be watching it. I'll be watching it anyway. So, yeah, no, I'll do a watch along for it.
There you go. Ireland, Armenia happening soon. Ian Ferguson saying, afternoon all. Window doesn't officially open until next week. Lots of time for the Dons to cook. Plenty of time. He's already done a bit of cooking. He's cleaning up the mess from, the last bit of cooking. Now he's getting ready for the second course. Big up, Ian. C Dancers in the house as well. And then Bobby K, who we will be talking to later, says, big up panel and everyone in the chat. Come on, you Spurs. Big up, Bobby K. Good to see you. Well, everybody, before we get into the show, we are just basically going to be talking about and predicting and just discussing the whole premise of what a £100 million player really is. Before we really get into this big tier maker, I think we kind of get, the boys and everything kind of warmed up, kind of focused on, kind of the subject, and maybe start with this question, which I think, almost maybe, I don't know, maybe it goes against the whole premise of the show. Almost it might be sabotaging myself here, but I think it is an interesting question. Is a player ever even worth £100 million? Would you ever, Dave, I'm going to start with you, pay £100 million for a player? Do you think it's worth
Of course
it?
would. Harry Kane, lad. I'd pay Harry Kane. I'd pay absolutely anything for. I mean, I'd pay anything for a strand of his hair, let alone the goals and the assist and the quality that this guy brings. Look, I think there's very few players that are worth that sort of money, but I definitely would pay that sort of money for a top player. It's just the way the market is going nowadays.
Interesting. And Kieran, what about yourself? Like, do you think £100 million player is worth it? Because we look at the ones that have been £100 million players. Neymar for 200 million, Mbappe, Coutinho, Griezmann, Joao Felix, and Jack Grealish. I mean, it's hard to really know like how you would really look at it. Are any of those like really worth it at the end of the day?
I think if you're asking the question, should anyone be worth 100 million?
Pay that much?
Should a player be worth that, or should players be going for that amount of money in general? In general, no, not really. But when you consider the amount of money involved in football, you then have to put in comparison with this how much money there is and how much money teams are making, how much Champions League gets you and all these sponsorship deals. Then yes, players are worth 100 million. Obviously, a lot of it nowadays isn't. Back in the day, it would be Ronaldo and Bale's. Players that are doing amazing in their leagues. Whereas now it's kind of shifted a lot more to players who have had one or two good seasons and you think they have a lot of potential. So I don't think the players that are going for 100 million have proven themselves as much as they would have in the past. But I think that, there's a lot more money in football nowadays. So I think it's a lot easier for players to gain that 100 million price tag move.
And with the money that's in football, there's, I guess, more justification or just more money to be burned and more money to be wasted. And perhaps, some of the clubs that you look at, I guess the only one that really sort of, I don't know, the one club that really did kind of maybe burn a lot of money that they probably didn't really need to is maybe Atletico Madrid, with that Joao Felix, £100 million transfer. I think it was £104 million. I think they were using that from the original Griezmann money that they got from Barcelona, but still at the end of the day, I think they probably didn't need to burn that all on one player right away. But in my eyes, I feel like with maybe teams like Newcastle, PSG, you could see how, they would pay 100 million. It kind of just makes sense. They have sort of blank checks. But for a club like Spurs, I kind of twist the question here. I don't know if Spurs should ever really pay 100 million pounds, for a player. I'm not even sure. Despite, I think, players being worth 100 million pounds, it just sometimes you kind of wonder, like, do they actually give you that sort of return on your investment? Do I even really care when it comes to the case of Daniel Levy? Probably not. But if I really were like running the club myself, I would probably look at the history of 100 million pound transfers and kind of think not really kind of worth it at the end of the day, especially with how much you have to fork over. Dave, any thoughts on that? Like if it were Spurs, maybe like an Aston Villa, an Arsenal, even sadly, you have to mention, is it worth it to them to pay 100 million pounds for a player? Versus like the teams that do have a blank check?
Look, for me, I think it depends on the player, to be honest with you. I think a player that you would consider at the very top of the game, that that if you buy them in, they're going to solve your problem. For me, I think it's definitely worth it. But it comes down to the finances of the clubs. I don't think a club like Aston Villa should ever get themselves in that sort of deal. I mean, Tottenham, I don't think, look, for another while at least, or another long time, I can't see us getting ourselves in that situation either. Yeah. But the reason why it comes about, though, Jack, is purely because the more money that comes into the game, the more opportunity, especially from betting companies, broadcasting rights, etc., the more the players feel like they want their cut and that they're worth more. And when you see the money coming in from, look, let's face it, whole countries, the likes of Newcastle City, I mean, smaller clubs are going to want their share of the pie as well. So they're going to charge a lot more for their assets. And I just don't think it's something that can be prevented unless someone comes in and kind of puts like a cap on things. I'm actually worried with the way this football's going at the minute. I do think eventually if you end up seeing the economy crash or a recession, I think football will be the one that will probably take the biggest hit purely because of the amount of money that's in the game at this moment in time and the amount of debts clubs are building up and et cetera, et cetera. I'm worried.
Yeah. Yeah, I could be worried. Yeah, but at the same time, is it really in control when it looks like the governing bodies of football don't really seem to care? They've made their stance pretty clear on it, which is kind of the sad thing about it, especially when it came to the Newcastle takeover. I mean, they clearly made their point very clear when it comes to, what they think of, big money coming into football. Bobby K saying football has gone mad finance-wise. Small clubs will soon cease to exist. Love you all. Big up, Bobby K. Looking forward to speaking to you later, my man. What do you feel like, Kieran? Do you think, are you kind of upset maybe that football has gone towards this sort of path? Does it not really bother you too much at the end of the day? Where do you kind of stand on maybe kind of how football has turned into sort of a blank check sort of industry with certain clubs?
I don't like it. I don't like the way there is so much money. Like you said, it's kind of a blank check. There is no caps not necessarily that I think 100% caps should be introduced or anything like that, but I think when you see some of the prices that players are banded around for, or rumored to be worth, and release clauses and things like that clubs want for players, it is a bit mad. And I do agree with Bobby K. I think that for smaller clubs who don't have as much finance as some of these big teams, it is getting a lot harder to compete. But just for your question, obviously you gave David as well about players.
If you were Spurs, would you pay 100 million? Like if you were a club that wasn't a blank check club, as you were just would you pay 100
and this is kind of leads to similar into the question that you just asked me. As Tottenham, no, it doesn't make sense for us because we're not a club that spends necessarily a ton of money, but we're also not a team that's winning everything. If you're a Man City that's got a lot of money and then you're sitting and you spend a lot of money anyway, but you're then winning the league and you're maybe winning another trophy every year, or say if you were Liverpool and you're winning 4 out of the last 5 seasons and winning the FA Cup, Carabao Cup, and competing and, getting to the final consistently in the past few years of the Champions League, you can justify that a lot more because there is that money and you can maybe look at players and go, commercially, they're going to bring in this for us. And when we consider this player might get us over that final line to win the Champions League next season, we're already, winning XYZ competitions every year. We just need that extra bit. It makes sense. But I don't think for anyone realistically out of the top 2, it ever makes sense. And I say top 2 because maybe you look at obviously Barcelona now with their financial situation, obviously it doesn't make sense. And transfers like this are what have got them into that mess in the first place and ridiculous wages, which is why I also don't like it, especially because you then have states funding these clubs to further go and spend even more money and still keep giving players ridiculous wages, even though they're already financially in debt. And that's the sad thing about it. But if a club has, Man City, where you just have money, or PSG or Newcastle, where you can just throw money at it, if you're in the top 2, you could maybe justify to keep you there and keep you going because you bring that money. But for anyone else, I don't think it makes any sense at all, to be honest.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that entirely. And Bobby K, I mean, I would kind of agree. It has gone mad, but we're just going to have to strap in for the ride, my man. Really appreciate support and looking forward to speaking to you. And hopefully Christian and Jay later, my man, especially David as well. Looking forward to the questions. Statistics is in the house, and he's one of the many Georgian fan base of this army. Big up Statistics. And I would say I'm very thankful for all the people who have watched that Kavicha video. They're probably responsible for half this channel's growth. I'll be honest. Absolute legends out there. Absolute legends. But we also have a super chat from Moondog saying, I'd rather get 2 50 million pound players. Probably, and maybe even in some cases, sometimes a player that goes for 100 million pounds might actually realistically be more 50 million kind of pound player in some cases. So I actually agree with you, Moondog. I'd probably rather go for 2 50 million pound players too. I mean, I feel like you're in exact agreement with me here, probably, Kieran, after what you just said, especially if you were a club like Spurs. This is probably what we'd rather do, is do 2 50 million pound players instead.
Yeah, I'd rather. I wasn't sure if you were making a statement or asking the question.
Yeah, sometimes I do that. Sometimes it never ends up being a question.
I definitely would. I'd rather go for 250 million players, especially if you consider the likes of Madrid, say, offering Mbappe 200 million and then them turning it down, and just purely because of the value that he is valued at, his wages are then exponentially more. But you get two players at 50 million, their wages probably don't total that of a, if you look at two 50 million pound players, maybe they're on 100 grand, 120 grand,
Right.
which is a lot of money, when you consider the 6 figures a week, which is mental money. But when you start looking at the players worth 100 million, then you're then talking like 300, 340,000, 350,000, 400. Look at Bale at Madrid, like 600,000 a week. Look at Mbappe's new contract, because those players are valued at over 100 million. So I'd rather get two 50 million players. I think in a lot of cases, the 50 million players can have the same impact as those 100 million players on exponentially less wages. And you're getting two quality players instead of throwing all your eggs into the one basket with the one. Yeah,
I completely agree. And Moondog, just want to say, here it is. The coaster is right here, my man. The Flat Cap Army right in front of you, my man. If that's what's for the glass of water here, and plenty of other things. I would say it's almost, I have pretty good coaster collection, and it probably has sailed right to the top, Moondog. So pretty impressive, my man. Really do appreciate it. Timmy L. Saying, Jack, our boy Kavicha has a goal today for Georgia against Gibraltar. He's going to Napoli, right? I think it's been confirmed that he is going to Napoli. That's actually a mistake for me wearing the Napoli kit. Just someone mentioned Marek Hamšík in the comments today and decided to wear actually my Hamšík kit that I got when I was a kid. So Timmy L. In terms of Kavicha, though, I'm excited and probably might do a highlight reaction at some stage, get David involved with it, because Kavicha's absolutely filthy. But last little question to, keep ourselves kind of focused on the conversation here. And it also kind of leads into our tier maker. Are center backs worth 100 million? And should I didn't include any in the list at all. So should I have included maybe them in the list? David, what are your thoughts?
I don't think so. I think it's more midfielders and attackers that go for that sort of money, purely because they're like the flair players. They're the ones that are on the back pages. They're the ones that are plastered everywhere. They're the ones that people are more likely to buy jerseys for, etc., etc. So I think that kind of ups their value and all this stuff as well. But with a centre back, look, I think a centre back, especially nowadays, is just as important as any member in the team. But unfortunately, it's just the way it's always been. The further you go up the pitch, the more expensive it gets, Jack.
Yeah, and it's also because the further up the pitch, I think the more rare sometimes like certain players become. Like how many, true number 9s are there in the world versus how many world-class center backs? There are probably more world-class center backs maybe in the world, or at least, and also you don't need always world-class center backs. You need like competent quality center backs, whereas sometimes maybe a lot of teams realize they need probably a world-class forward more than they need a world-class center back. But the game is changing, Dave. And so, Kieran, do you feel like a center back is worth 100 mil?
I think could they be worth 100 million? Yes, but are they worth it currently? Yeah. No, I don't think so. Purely because, like I said again, obviously the money in football, a lot of it with transfers even comes with the commercial side and what teams are making. And I will ask you a question, right? How many Nike adverts have you seen of football players, attackers or midfielders with flair that are scoring goals and getting assists that are in the adverts? And it's all about be like this player, be like the one getting goals and assists. Or, you see a lot of those types of adverts. When was the last time you seen a Nike or an Adidas advert of a defender where the defender is the height, like this is buy this boot if you want to be like this one.
Yeah, why is there no Van Dijk Cologne ads?
Imagine Eric Dyer. Eric Dyer. But obviously the glorious thing in football is seen as like getting those last minute winners, getting those important goals and the big moments. So obviously the players that get those deals are generally attackers, and that only adds to their marketability and their commercial value for clubs. And that's generally why attackers are the ones that go for so much money and have those price tags. So centre-backs, do I think they will be worth 100 million soon? 100%. Do I think they're worth 100 million at the moment?
No, but that's
And that's just
purely.
to clarify, because you think eventually people will start to see that they are a very valuable component of a team, like, you know, maybe.
So it's a mixture. Yes, people will see, especially with the likes of, you know, people making that comparison of Van Dijk, you know, where people kind of go, wow, they spent a lot of money on Van Dijk, but look how much he transformed that Liverpool team. Other clubs will look at that and kind of go, well, we can maybe get this player over the line. He's going to transform our team. But more so because I think the values of players are going to go back up. With COVID, we've seen a little hit where clubs needed to make money and they're willing to sell for less, and it kind of reset the market in a way a little bit. But I think now clubs are starting to get more money and COVID isn't as much of an issue. I think clubs are going to start to get a little bit more loose with their wallets again and start spending and start throwing more and more money at clubs. I mean, if you look at it, Jack Grealish went for 100 million. You know, this summer, but last summer, and that was the season after COVID. So if you now think fans have come back into stadiums and now spending even more money, clubs aren't having to think about, okay, well, we've got to make sure that you know we're cute with our transfer business now. Teams will just start spending more money. So yeah,
I definitely think the reason why is though the hardest thing to do in football is score goals, create goals, and score goals. And I think that's why you see midfielders, forwards, especially like Kieran was saying, the flair players, because they're the ones that have that extra superhuman quality. They're the ones that can produce them magic moments compared to a centre back who's, you know, look, let's be honest. I mean, you could bring in the most average centre back, put four good guys together, you'll form a sort of solid defence. But
especially
you know,
if you have a good manager too. A good manager makes bad centre backs look good sometimes too.
The hardest thing to do is to have that vision, you know, the right way on the pass, that finishing ability, having that skill. Not everybody can do that, but anyone that is any sort of way decent at football can go and win the ball, can challenge for the ball, can defend. But it takes that extra special player to be able to produce the magic moments, and that's why they go for a lot more than centre backs.
If we're kind of saying that centre backs go for 100 million in the future, and we're trying to predict the next 100 million center back, I think maybe we're probably answering. I did maybe make a slight mistake and probably should have put maybe some center backs in here, to be fair. I think it's probably the conclusion I'm getting here. Sorry, Kieran, I came across it there.
No, just obviously to go on what David said as well. The thing is as well, a lot of the clubs are spending this money, like I said before, you know, it only really makes sense for the top two teams, and generally the teams that spend this money are always the top two teams in their league. And when you're the top two in your league, you're generally not conceding a lot of possession. You're generally not having to defend as much. You're generally dominating the ball. So a lot of the time, you're more focused on your team going forward because domestically, your team has a lot of the ball. And defense only really becomes an issue when you start going into Champions League. You know, and it really depends on what a club's ambitions are in that sense. You know, do they go, no, we really need to get someone, let's go forward? Because if they don't see as much value, they'll just kind of go, okay, well, let's just go and stick 50 million on this decent defender who's probably going to develop, who's quite young, and we'll spend the big bucks on the players up top.
And nowadays, it's also the defenders are with those teams that you're talking about that dominate possession. It's more about now the defenders that can help in possession, help, you know, pick a team apart. It's almost like we now are sacrificing a bit of the defensive abilities for that extra, you know, possession ability. Hence why even Pau Torres is probably so valuable in the first place, is because some people don't rate his defensive game, but you can't disrespect his, you know, possession abilities, his composure, you know, his sense under pressure. So I don't know. It's interesting. I think in the future, if I'm going to be honest, I could see them going for 100 million. But like Kieran said, Dave, that's a good point. Like at the end of the day, like teams like Man City, Liverpool, Chelsea, etc., the majority of the ball is with the midfielders and is with those intricate sort of players that can pick a team apart.
100%. But as well, they have, like, you look at clubs like Tottenham, you know, clubs that are trying to get to where these clubs are. They genuinely have a lot more positions to fill, so they can't spend that 100 million on one area, one position. But you look at the clubs like yourself and Kieran are talking about. How often do they actually really need to improve in other areas so they can afford to spend all their transfer on that one player? You know, get the best in that position. We only need one position to strengthen. Go and get me him. Don't care at all costs. And the selling club knows that as well, so that's why they can charge what they want.
Very good point. Very good
It's
point.
one thing I would say as well is if you own a Tottenham shirt, like if you took even just Tottenham, because if we're not necessarily a club that spends that amount of money, what do you think the ratio probably is for shirts printed in the terms of, let's say this season coming up, not even this season, what do you think the percentage split would be of people that are going to get Sun or Kane shirts to the likes of Romero shirts? I think it's probably a massive differential in
It is a
people,
massive difference.
especially kids. Especially kids, I think you
Yeah,
see that going.
even if you sign the best center back in the world, no one had. Do more people have Van Dijk shirts than Salah shirts? No, at the end of the day. That's a good point there, Kieran. Well, I figure we move into the tier maker. Well done, lads. Good warm up there as we get into this, and we have not too many columns really to work with because I wanted to keep it kind of simple here, and it's fine if we have a lot of players that go into one section because I feel like there will be a lot of overlap. But what I have is the 100 million likely category. This is like the player that you actually could see going for 100 million, and that would be then our list to work with later as to who you think you would predict be the next 100 million pound player. 100 million unlikely is where they could go for 100 million, but you just see it as more unlikely. Leave on a free, that's like maybe that Lewandowski sort of situation where maybe at one stage he could have gone for 100 million, but decided to almost kind of wait till the last end of his contract. But almost kind of similar to Harry Kane, but he is actually leaving this time. Couldn't even wait, till the free. Never worth 100 million. Basically, just means you don't rate him. That will be a fun category, or at least just don't rate him as a 100 million pound player. And then never leaving, which I actually think is a good category as well, because perhaps that person's really tied to that club, or at least isn't, in the future, going for that sort of price. Maybe we just start with some easy ones, I was thinking, but everybody in the comments, while you're in here, about 50 in the house. So do hit that like button. Do hit that subscribe as well if you are new. And also we do have a few new ones in the house like Marquise and Jason Bell and plenty of others. And big up Jason Bell. He's an interesting topic today. I think it will be. And I think we'll just talk about a lot of players and kind of go through it pretty rapidly. We don't really need to spend too much on many, but let's maybe start with just at least a fun player. And I know a lot of people know him from FIFA, Football Manager, etc. He is headed to Borussia Dortmund, but he is someone that I do see leaving Borussia Dortmund in the next few years. So Karim Adeyemi, Kieran, do you know anything about him? I could see him in the 100 million likely category at some stage in the future, maybe leaving Dortmund for close to 100 million.
I just muted my mic by accident. To be honest, I actually feel 100 million unlikely, just purely because I feel with Dortmund, I generally with Dortmund, it's like just as players are about getting to their peak, or just before they're going to start getting to their peak, they generally sell. Like you look at, Götze back in the day. There's a lot of players that have sold to Bayern, even Haaland. I know they didn't necessarily have a choice in that, to be honest, but he has that release clause in his contract, and he's gone for 60 million. And I feel that Adeyemi is going to have, if you compare what Haaland has done in the past few years, I feel like Adeyemi is going to have to outperform that because it's not necessarily as physical or doesn't possess.
He's a very different player.
He's a completely different player. He's going to have to perform a lot more than Haaland did to get that 100 million price tag. When you consider the price that Haaland's just gone for, I think that will probably affect future. I think it'll be close.
Yeah,
in terms of maybe I think it would be maybe like Marquise just said there, about 75, 80 million maybe, but I don't know. I don't feel like it gets to 100. I think it's just under that.
I actually agree with that. Dave, do you rate Adeyemi? He was brilliant this season in the Champions League.
Yeah, look, he's had a good campaign this season, Jack. But look, for me, when you look at what Wayne Rooney done when he was a teenager going into his early 20s, Haaland, Mbappe, players like that, for me, I think never worth 100 million, if I'm being honest. Look, I think he's a decent player, but I don't think he'll ever reach 100 million. I just think when you compare him to what other players have done, through teenagers and going into the early 20s. I just don't see it there. And for me, I think never worth 100 million.
Yeah, Kieran convinced me with that, actually, to be fair. And when you kind of mentioned Dortmund not selling for that much, it did kind of make me think about this one. So a good transition here. We're just starting hot and heavy. Jude Bellingham, honestly, the best midfielder in the world, I would say, for his age group.
Put him in
100
like-
million.
Is he up here?
But yeah,
Yeah.
100, yeah.
Is that just because Dortmund wouldn't settle for less? They'll never settle for less? Is it that sort of argument?
Jack, he's a specimen. He's like 6'8". He can control the ball. He can shoot. He can header, box to box, energetic. I mean, can tackle. I mean, he's literally got it all for such a young age. He's gone from Birmingham to Borussia Dortmund. Unheard of. 100 million in the future, 100%. I don't understand why England don't use him a lot more.
Isn't he still a teenager?
Yeah, he's 18. He's 18.
That's absurd.
He played against City and dominated in one of those legs, when he was 17 years old. And obviously he's got managers like Pep praising him highly. He's got a lot of managers that are giving him a lot of props. And he already kind of plays and speaks a little bit beyond his years. Sometimes you hear him say stuff in interviews, you kind of think, you've shown your age there, but more often than not, he speaks kind of a little bit beyond his years. And I think the real reason as well,
in front of the camera, at least. Yeah.
I think the real reason he'll go for that as well is because he is English, and I don't mean that as like, English tax, but it is because
he'll go back to the Premier League. He's going back to the Premier League for 100 million.
But it's because if you look at the teams in England, and obviously you have the homegrown rule. Generally, English players go for a lot, but if you look at the teams in England that would spend maybe 100 million, you're talking Man United, Man City, maybe Liverpool. You've got to compare similar players that have gone that are English in terms of Jack Grealish for 100 million, but also, but then also link that to Bellingham's only 18 and what his value is at the moment. He's probably valued at around 70 million at the moment, even. So you give him another 2 years performing at the level and improving on what he is, I think he'll go for 100 million. I think it'll be an English club, especially. Sorry, I was actually going to say, but I forgot. I was going off in a tangent. The English clubs, you got to look at the likes of at Liverpool. Fabinho's getting older. Thiago isn't necessarily old, but he's not necessarily one of the players in his young years. So a lot of these clubs will have aging players. Gundogan's probably leaving City. Then they've got, obviously, I was about to say Fabinho, not Fabinho. Fernandinho, sorry.
He's
left.
leaving, I think, after this season, essentially. I think he's just left.
And United as well. United have been lacking a midfielder for like the past 3-4 seasons. So if you look at those clubs, I just have a feeling that one of those English clubs will try to bring him back. And because he's playing well and because in the Bundesliga for Dortmund, because of his age, because of how he acts kind of beyond his years, and then obviously that slight English tax on top, and because clubs will be willing to pay for it, I think he'll most likely go for 100 million, unless he gets an injury or something.
It's not only that. It's not only that, though, but you look at the guy and you just look at the way he carries himself, the attributes he has, the size of the guy. He's one of them. He's one of them rare sort of athletes, where he can do a bit of everything. And you look at him. He is certain to become one of the best midfielders in the world in the next 5 years. The guy's only 18.
Yeah.
You look at his mentality, his personality. Some things are just an absolute given. But when you looked at Haaland, you knew. A couple of years,
they're kind of both freaks in nature, Dave. They're kind of both freaks in nature, essentially, like kind of made in factories, kind of both set of players. Dan N saying not 100 million pound related, but why aren't Spurs going for Lucas Hernandez? A strong left-footed, great passer, and only got 19 starts at Bayern this season. I think he's extremely injury prone, Dan, if I'm not mistaken. But I would say though, he kind of would be similar to Ben Davies, but has a lot more pace, than him. He has exceptional recovery speed, I would say. He's probably even faster than Sanchez, if I might say. He has that left-footed ability, so he could carry the ball, similar to maybe how Ben Davies does. He's played left back in his career before. I mean, his brother plays left back, as we know, at an exceptional level. And I don't know, he'd be interesting. He would fit that system sort of well. I could see him fit that system well. That's a good shout, Dan. In my notes, just quickly, he is the third most expensive center back of all time as well. Sorry, Kieran.
I didn't know that. That's quite interesting, actually. But I seen a comment from SOF or SOF, and he said, "I think you answered your own question there. He's at Bayern." um, and I think, yeah, I think even if you get 19 starts for Bayern, he's still relatively young as well.
Yeah, and
You
they
know,
bought
Hernandez.
him for 68 million pounds, and
Yeah,
Bayern aren't really a club that do that, so it shows maybe their faith in the guy,
yeah, and
or at least at the
I
time.
think. Sorry, yeah, that's what I was going to say. 19. They paid a lot of money for him. He's still relatively young enough, and he's got 19 starts. You can only really see that increasing. Rather than decreasing over the next few years. So I think that kind of is probably why. I honestly, I think it's a great shout. If he had a few less starts than that, I'd say maybe we can get it. Maybe they're not favouring him, but I think 19 starts for Bayern is still quite a lot considering the quality that they have in that team.
Yeah.
I think when you weigh up what they're going to be asking for, for me, I don't think it makes sense, and I don't think Tottenham will stump up that kind of money. So I think that's why you're looking at the likes of a Bastoni, someone who is quality, but you can still get for some sort of reasonable price.
Dan, that is an interesting suggestion that I haven't heard suggested, perhaps because it's not exactly possible, but he would fit that sort of bill in a very interesting way. He doesn't really bring the height, but he would be very similar to Ben Davies, but probably just have better attributes than Ben Davies does, I think, at the end of the day. So that would be really interesting shout. Big up, Dan. Moving into maybe the next one. This is kind of tough to pick. Let's maybe knock off some ones. I'm going to see Joao Felix never going for 100 million pounds again, but he is an exceptional player. But he was not worth 100 million pounds at the time in my eyes, but I don't see him going for 100 million again. Anybody disagree with me here?
Yeah, no, I agree. The only thing I'd even say is, are we putting him in never worth 100 million or unlikely 100 million?
Even in the future, you don't think even in the future he won't be worth? Yeah. He's still 22. He's 22.
I honestly feel that he stays at Atletico for the next couple of years. He maybe gets another move for maybe 50, 60 million if he's doing well. And I think that's probably it. He'll probably stay at that club then for the next few years before maybe going on a free or something to another club and finishing off his career. I think he's a player that's not going to move around a ton. I feel like he's a player that's just going to be at one club, maybe sell before the end of his contract is up, and then I feel like at that team he'll probably stay there a good few years, unless he's underperforming. So I don't think he's really going to reach levels where he's absolutely smashing it at Atletico. He then gets 80 million move, smashes there, and then gets 100 million move. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think he'll ever reach 100 million. Maybe close, but I don't see him passing that, to be honest.
I think he's actually at the wrong club.
He's honest. I think he's actually at the wrong club as well. I don't think he suits our system. If he was at a different club who suited more his play style, I would actually say 100 million potential is likely, because I feel like his age, and then he'd obviously be performed because the team fits his system a lot. The way he plays, the system would fit him a lot more. I think that would boost his price tag up. But I think, like I said, I don't see him leaving Atletico in the next kind of 2 seasons. And that brings him to like 24, turning 25. Playing the system doesn't really fit him. I think that affects your price tag quite a bit.
I agree.
So yeah, that's the only reason.
Interesting. Good takes from Joao Felix. Camavinga, do we see him going for 100 million in the future? Because he is still exceptionally young. Maybe he might feel like he wants to go to PSG or something like that at one stage, Dave. What do you think? I'm going to stay 100 million unlikely, because maybe he never leaves Madrid.
Yeah.
Maybe never leaves. He could be in the never leaving category. That would be a bold.
Yeah, I think never leave.
I think 100 million unlikely. There's only one club that I think he probably leaves PSG. For, and it's probably PSG. I don't think he leaves. Why? Why would you? What?
Maybe he doesn't even like PSG. Who knows? Maybe
I don't even think he leaves for PSG. I think he stays at Real Madrid. I think the age he is, and you look at Madrid's history with midfielders, Casemiro, Modric, Kroos, the service these guys have given. You go back before then, Zidane, players like that. I think this guy stays at Real Madrid for the rest of his career.
Not even that. Look at Modric. Look at how long Modric has been there and been in that midfield. And you look at the aging side of Madrid's midfield. I think he they have a history of winning things and doing really well in the Champions League. It's a thing of like, why would he leave? And that's why I said the only reason I could see him leaving, or team I could see him leaving to, would be PSG, and that's if they just threw tons and tons of money of him, and because he's French,
suggestion.
and just because he's French, that's literally it. But as a whole, I
but
don't.
Who
think
knows?
it happens.
He might be like a Marseille. I know he was at Rennes, but like, who knows? Some people from Marseille like really would never play for PSG. It could be like kind of something like that. So I don't know Camavinga's background, but who knows? Maybe he actually despises PSG, like from like a Liga sort of like rivalry wise. So who knows? This could be a good take because this is a defender. Sorry, Dave. What?
Liga, the French league is absolutely crap. There's no real pull in it. I get the PSG pull, but I don't think he'll ever leave Real Madrid. I really don't. I think he's suited for Real Madrid. I think they wouldn't put it this way. They wouldn't have brought him.
You step backwards, I think.
Yeah, I don't look. They wouldn't have bought him if they didn't think this was going to be their guy for the next 10, 12 years, in my opinion. I definitely think that's what he's there for.
Well, this was I 100% agree. The only thing I was even giving that answer to is not the fact that he would go for 100 million, the fact that he might leave, but I could only ever see that for one club, which I see it being very unlikely. So I'd leave.
It was a good conversation. It was a good point to bring up PSG, and I think it's the only club you could have said. Alphonso Davies, someone who I think is he's probably already the best left back in the world, and is probably, if he played in a Conte system, would be the best left wing back in the world. He's plays as like a striker or like a number 10 in Canada's national team. He's that good technically. I mean, could you see him going for 100 million pounds from Bayern if he ever left Bayern? Maybe is it one of these two, never leaving, or 100 million likely? What do we think? Like, this is an interesting one. Want to start us off again, Dave? Or sorry, Kieran, if you want to start us off, if you have an immediate thought on it.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna go a bit bold here, but I think never worth 100 million. Not because I don't think he will be worth that. I just don't think he'll ever go for that. So maybe 100 million unlikely. But
I think that's what don't think he'll. Is.
Yeah.
Interesting. Dave, disagree with that?
Not entirely. No, to be honest. I think he could definitely reach 100 million, but the thing is, who's going to pay? And like with Bayern, I think if they ever got in around 70, 80 million, I think they'd be happy to take that.
They might just find the next one. Find the next one.
Yeah, I think they'd be happy to take that. And I think wherever he goes next, it'd be unlikely to see him move on kind of again in his prime. So maybe Kieran is right. Maybe unlikely to reach 100 million, but I definitely, look, if I was someone like Man City or somebody like that, and that was the going rate, I'd pay it.
The reason I say is
freak of nature, like Holland and Bellingham, there are a lot of freaks of nature in the Bundesliga. To be fair, and also some of the most 100 million pound players I think are in the Bundesliga, from what I've seen.
One thing that I would say as well is I don't think he'll ever reach that 100 million price tag because of his heart condition.
Oh, that's right.
Because he has that heart condition. Yeah, he has a heart condition. He was out for 2 or 3 months with a heart condition. I think that will probably put a lot of players off spending that amount of money. Clubs spending that amount of money on players.
Interesting.
Actually, just to go on your physical point or your physical specimen point, have you seen players when they join Bayern versus 2 or 3 years into Bayern?
Whoever they have in the weight room.
I don't know. I don't know. Arnold Schwarzenegger's in the bloody weight room or something. The amount they bulk up. Is
David Hasselhoff is in there too. That'd be hilarious. Maybe another Bayern player here, lads. Let's just do some of the Bayern players since we're already on that theme here. Goretzka, I know Dave, you and I really rate him so high, but I think it's the 100 million unlikely category too. Unfortunately, I think it's the same conversation where would Bayern even accept? They probably would accept like an 80 million pound bid for him. They did sign him up for a big new contract though. Like that is the guy that they do trust. And I don't think there are many Goretzkas in the world, if I'm going to be honest. But I don't know. Kieran, would you disagree with that and maybe move on to Gnabry, or do you feel like, maybe you put him somewhere else?
I think he'll never. So this is the weird thing with this debate, right? Will he ever be worth 100 million in terms of his valuation and his market value?
Depends on the club. A lot of it depends on the club too.
Yeah, but this is what I mean. Will he ever be that price in terms of his market value? Yes, potentially. although it's maybe unlikely. Will he ever transfer for 100 million? I don't think he'll ever transfer for 100 million. I think he'll stay at Bayern for a long time. I think if he does leave, it won't be anywhere close to 100 million. But in his tenure at Bayern, especially with transfer values going up, I could see his market value, like his
Being
estimated market value, being close. But I think it's very unlikely.
I agree with that. Yeah.
I have one little not criticism, Jack, but it's kind of bugging me. When I see Alphonso Davies and Goretzka in 100 million unlikely and then Adeyemi beside it, I feel like Adeyemi should be moved down to never worth 100 million and then leave Goretzka and Davies where they are.
Interesting. I think it's because with Adeyemi, you're almost like making that long-term prediction, that way down the road, he could be worth it. But I like that energy, Dave. I like that energy. It's the same thing with Camavinga. I'm going to actually put him there. I'm going to put him there just because, Dave,
he looks better beside Joe.
I agree with that. Maybe we'll let the chat disagree with that. But it's also, this is such a vague category, so maybe that was kind of my fault. But maybe this sort of thing is just like, you just don't think he ever will be worth 100 million. And so it's that sort of, you just don't rate him to ever be worth 100 million. Where I guess with Alphonso Davies and Goretzka, you could see how, right, like Kieran was saying, Transfermarkt would value them at 100 million, but they're not going to go for 100 million is kind of the big difference. Serge Gnabry, he is going to be leaving, it looks like, this summer, but way down the road, could you see him going for 100 million? I mean, this guy, he's almost similar to Sonny, actually, I think, like just ruthless finisher, and that's probably one of his best attributes. But I don't know, Kieran, what do you think? Serge Gnabry, like maybe down the line in the future, could go for 100 million or something?
No, I think this is a never worth 100 million. He's been rumored to Arsenal for what, 40 million at the moment? After coming from Bayern,
maybe if he were to go to an Arsenal, would he leave from an Arsenal for 100 million or something like that?
I mean, what Arsenal? What players have you seen go to Arsenal in the past 15 years that have gone?
I was just about to say that.
Touche.
Like, I'm not just saying that because I'm a Tottenham fan, because I could easily say a player coming to 40 million. Well, I suppose Kane and Son are worth that, so maybe that's different. But yeah, no, I just don't see it happening. I think if you're at Bayern Munich and you're having a good spell at Bayern, and you kind of go, oh, I'm a bit unhappy, and you only go for around 40 million, I don't feel like you can easily say or even justify, okay, well, he's going to go to Arsenal, bust it and sell for 100 million. I just don't see it happening personally.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I really like that. Let me see if there are any other Bayern players in here that I could take away. We're almost Kimmich. I think it's the same thing, but I love Kimmich. I would say I do love him, but he's getting too old now. I think he's like 27, so I don't see him going for 100 million. I think he's 100 million unlikely. Never leaving. Good point, Dave. What am I saying? Good point. Yeah, he's probably like a Thomas Muller, where he's more like he's from Stuttgart, I think, originally, so he is from kind of southern Germany.
Yeah.
So
he's 27
that
now.
would make sense.
He's 27 now as well. Yeah. So even if he did transfer, I just can't see it being anywhere close to 100 million. So, but I think he stays. I think he stays.
But if you look at some of the players,
Philip Lahm, he'll be like a Philip Lahm, just stays there forever, I would imagine.
I do think if you look at some of the players that have gone for 100 million, I think with this guy, you are buying a guy that can play multiple positions, is sound all around, and is a very good player, very solid personality as well. I do think, he probably could be worth it if someone was willing to stump it up, or maybe have already been willing to stump it up. But I just think never leaving Bayern Munich. I think he, like you said, Jack, a bit like Thomas Muller. I think he's there to stay now.
Jamal Musiala, though, his partner, Jamal Musiala. What I mean, this could be.
He could.
I think unlikely. I actually don't think it's likely. I think it's probably more unlikely, but that's me personally.
Could he be? Is he like at Bellingham, though, where he's just so freakishly talented for his age that you could see him going for that much, maybe? And
plus,
also,
he's
I could see almost. Yeah. This is tough.
I get what you're saying
because he's one of these two. I don't think you could ever say he's never worth 100 million because I would.
But
almost say
the only reason I say unlikely, as well, is because with Bayern, they're not afraid to stack up on positions, so they will go out and buy another central midfielder if they fit. Like they bought Sabitzer and now they're looking at Konrad Laimer. After buying Sabitzer last season. So you kind of got to look at it as Bellingham is 100 million likely because are Dortmund going to bring in another player, even though they have him? Unlikely. They're generally a club that kind of buys to fix issues that they have, whereas Bayern don't necessarily have a ton of issues. So the players they bring in, they just kind of buy upgrades of wherever they think they can, just anywhere across the board, not any position they feel a weakness in, because generally they're not that weak. So that's why I feel like maybe unlikely, because he could be pushed out of the team a little bit by someone more experienced, if that more experienced player performs.
disagree.
And I feel that that'll affect his evaluation.
Give it to me, Dave.
I disagree.
I think
I think when you look at the age he's come in and the numbers he's putting up, I think his talent is only going to get better and better.
He's another freak of nature. Yeah.
I also believe he will want to play in the Premier League one day, because he is half English. He could have played for England. They tried to call him up. I think he may have been called up for some of the underage teams as well. So for me, I think when you look at him, I don't think Bayern Munich is going to be his whole career, and I do see him reaching 100 million. I think when you look at the age he is at now, and what he's doing now, think about what this guy's going to do when he's 23, 24, 25. It's going to be to the point where the big boys are going to want this guy. So for me, I think 100 million likely.
But
I was originally in that category, so I'm kind of happy we have three here.
Can I just counter this, right?
No, you're not allowed, Jack. Move on.
No. You stay there, Jack. Because I think David's making a fair point. However, because I do think he will come back to the Premier League. But I would ask the question, when does he come back to the Premier League? Because he's 19 now, and generally what we see with English clubs when they're spending a lot on English talent is they buy players in their early 20s or as soon as they're starting to rise, because they try and buy them before they're worth too much. So I think
he's going to be that good, though, that they have no option.
By the time he's 21, I'd imagine he'd be 100 million by the time he's 21.
I think he's probably around. What would you even say he's worth now?
Maybe he's worth 60. I'd say he's worth 60 right now. He's worth 60, just because you are buying like a generational talent. You might be buying
generational talent. Yeah, I agree.
Okay,
I'd say 60 is probably too much. If we're talking pounds as well, I would probably digress. Yeah, I'd say 50 or 40.
I was going to say 50. Yeah, I was going to say 45, 50. I think 45 is quite low, but 50 just because of how young he is. But I think he probably goes in the next 2 years, and I think he'll probably go for around a Kai Havertz fee of 70.
Yeah, like Marquise said there. Yeah,
70, 75. I
think you raise good points, Kieran, but I'm just going to overrule you.
It's a democracy. It's a democracy, Jack. So 2v1, I've been overruled.
I don't even know if the chat has really agreed with me or Dave, though. But we'll see. Maybe they'll go up in arms, but we'll find out. Let's just finish up some of these Bundesliga players here. Erling Haaland is going to Man City, but would he leave Man City after that for 100 million? I just feel like he's going to leave on a free or something like that. I feel like he leaves on a free, from Man City at some stage. Because
do you know what? I think free to
he likes the money. I would say Erling Haaland does seem to enjoy a bit of money.
I think.
You have to remember he's how lad play for City.
Yeah. Do you know what? I think with the new deal that Mbappe has signed with PSG, I think. I'm not even sure what length Haaland's deal with City is. However, he has got, I can't remember what it is, but I remember seeing something about he's already got a clause in his City contract that can help him leave the club. So, I can see him potentially leaving, but I don't know. I don't think it would be for 100 million. I reckon if anything, it's probably going to be similar to what it is with Dortmund, where it's kind of his contract's ending and then he looks to leave, and because he's got a year or so left, he's probably not. Yeah.
That's what I see happening too. I think that's spot on. More Bundesliga players. I'm just looking for them. This is going to be interesting. Maybe just finish up all the Dortmund players. Gio Reyna is a very young player, I think still. He might be 19 or 20, I think still. I don't see him ever going for 100 million, but I think he could be in the 100 million. Is he the 100 million unlikely category? Is he the never worth 100 million? But it's hard to probably predict.
I would say never worth.
I think never worth.
We said that about Adeyemi. We said that about Adeyemi.
I'm gonna say never worth 100 million purely because of the position he plays in. Because how much hype have you heard around Haaland, Bellingham, even Adeyemi is playing at Salzburg compared to Giovanni Reina.
Don't get me wrong.
Maybe
This
great.
guy is actually a scorer of some incredible goals. He can score some nice goals. But do you know what, Jack? I maybe think you could nearly put him in never leaving because, correct me if I'm wrong, his outlet played for Borussia Dortmund. Claudio Reina, I think, was his outlet.
Sunderland, I think. In Sunderland, I think he played for Sunderland, or he's born in Sunderland. I think Gio Reyna.
I know his outlet definitely played in the Bundesliga. So but I just don't think he'll ever reach the 100 million. To be honest with you, just don't.
I do really like Gio Reyna. I almost kind of like him more than Pulisic, if I'm going to be honest.
I actually think he'll be better than Pulisic is currently.
Okay, so that's not a
considering
crazy
his
opinion.
considering his age. I
way.
think he's like 19, 19. Maybe
Any
I'm
Americans in the chat,
underestimating him, but
do
yeah.
let me know, or anybody that do know Pulisic. I kind of like Reyna more than Pulisic. I think Pulisic is obviously a better player at this moment in time, but I agree. Maybe 2 to 3 years time could be a different story. But yeah, maybe sadly never worth 100 million.
His outlet
No
was
disrespect to them.
Claudio
There's no disrespect to any of these players when it comes to this. I mean, it's kind of absurd at the end of the day to be worth that much. But sorry, Dave. Yeah.
I was just saying, just confirming. Yeah, my hunch was right. His outlet was the that American Claudio Reina.
The never leaving. Maybe he'll go in there, Dave. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. This will be fun. Since we have so many Spurs people in the chat right now, 62 people in the house. Smash that like button, everybody. Hopefully you are enjoying this conversation. Time to get contentious here. Kulusevski time, everybody. We were going to finish the Bundesliga, but I'm going to make a big kind of just halt, and we're going to just go to a quick Spurs player. Dave.
Yes, he's coming to Tottenham and never leaving.
Who are we on?
We're on Kulusevski.
Dave. Could he go for 100 million? Let's just establish that. Would he go for 100?
100% he could. If you look
So
at the numbers he's posted in half a season.
It's then this or this. It's then 100 million likely or never leaving, then I would imagine.
Do you know why I'm going to say 100 million likely? Is because you look at some of the players we've had before, likes of Bale, Modric, stuff. When Madrid come calling, they tend to get their man. And for me, I just think because he's not like Harry Kane, who has come through the system and stuff like that, I think there will be that possibility if he keeps going into the trajectory and the trajectory that he's going in right now. But that's a big if. But the reason why I say that is because he didn't come through Spurs like maybe a Harry Kane. And down the line, I could see one of the bigger boys come calling.
I think never leaving. I think we'll sign him. I don't think the numbers he's posting up at the minute he'll consistently put up for the next 3 seasons across entire season. I think he'll have good numbers, but right now he's getting a goal involvement every game. So we're saying like over the next 2 seasons have 38 goal involvements in 38 games for 2 or 3 seasons.
He's got Kane's son with him. Why can't he?
I think as well we'd be cautious to even sell him or try and sell him for as much because of Kane and Son's age. We'll be very mindful of maybe, try and keep in these players so we can build a squad that once those 2 players edge out, that we will keep them. I don't know. I think look at who Madrid have at the moment. They're Vinny Jr. on one wing. I don't know.
Right wing is still open.
Exactly. They're looking for players.
They have Rodrigo.
They're looking for players. That's my point.
Well, they have Rodrigo, but they're also trying to get Rafinha in, which is likely to leave from Leeds. So then you're kind of going, okay, well, who are they going for? Who is Kulusevski replacing, Rafinha or Vinny Jr.?
I like the Kulusevski never leaving because I think that transitions well to Sonny because I think Sonny, it's the same thing.
Never
He's worth 100 million pounds. He's worth 100 million pounds right now, but he's never leaving. So it's
I'm glad you said that, Jack, because I don't want to have the discussion about him leaving.
No, never.
I don't want to hear. I don't want to hear any chat about Son leaving.
Would you agree with me? He is worth 100 million pounds if you were to buy him right
100%.
now.
Yeah. Right now, he's worth 100 million, but never leaving. I mean, he loves the club. If he was thinking about leaving, he wouldn't have signed that new contract, and that just proves to me that he's never leaving.
Kane, Dave, is he in the never leaving category? He's also the same thing as Son, worth 100 million probably to you right now, but is he leaving? Is he leaving? Like I said, he's leaving to Sampdoria when he's 38.
I make a prediction now. I think he's not leaving. I think Conte will be here for longer than what people expect. I think that'll see Harry Kane through. I think he retires and goes become a kicker somewhere in the NFL.
Love it for the new London NFL
I'm
team.
just-
That will come.
I'm going to say never leaving as well, just purely because I'm hoping we win a trophy of Conte, and that kind of keeps Kane happy, and he kind of goes, I've won some trophies now, and I'm happy to just see out the rest of my career with Tottenham. That's in my head. That's the situation that's happening. So all logic goes out the window with Tottenham players. It's just what I want in my heart.
Yeah, my logic's gone out the window here too. I completely agree. Let's finish up the Bundesliga. This will be fun. Florian Wirtz. Leaving Bayer Leverkusen, that's the question. Would Bayer Leverkusen take 100 million? Like, would they accept less? Would they accept less? Is the other question.
This is quite a tricky
one.
Would
he go for 100 million after Leverkusen? Like, it doesn't have to be Leverkusen.
Yeah.
It'd be after Leverkusen.
I think it depends on when he goes and who he goes to, because obviously Jack. Obviously Leverkusen are the team I watch the most in the Bundesliga. This guy is special. He is honestly special.
I think he's Germany's Phil Foden. I think he's like Germany's Phil Foden.
Look, people go on about the Dutch left centre back. I forgot his name.
Lissandro Martinez.
Played at Lille.
De Ligt. Oh, no. Botman. Yeah,
Botman. A lot of people a lot of people talk about Botman, being one of those players for the future still. When Wirtz played against Botman, he absolutely tore him a new one. People were looking, leave on the free.
I'm going to leave that there. See if Dave Nevins says SOF, see if he's listening.
People will, Wirtz tore Botman a new one. Honestly, for Botman, his value must have dropped by like 75% after that one game. Seriously. I've never seen a player get rinsed inside and out as much as when Wirtz played against him. And I think with the talent that Wirtz has, he has a potential. He is a wonder kid. The one thing is injury. Obviously, he's been out towards the end of the season for Leverkusen. I think potentially if that becomes a reoccurring issue, then I think 100 million is quite unlikely. But I think if he actually gets that injury past him,
he just
goes on and doesn't.
Season.
Yeah, I can honestly see him going for 100 million because he's a winger, and he does drive at people, Well, I say a winger, but he can play anywhere across kind of that front three behind the striker in terms of he can play wide or he can play in the attacking role if need be. But I think he is someone special. If he can get the injury behind him, I think then 100 million. Mate, I don't know. Part of me says unlikely because I feel like they're selling for below that.
They're selling for less. It's that.
I think Leverkusen are selling for less, but I think
Florian Wirtz,
his actual value will be worth
if you've ever seen enough of him, I mean, he is like I think he's Germany's Phil Foden, Dave. That's kind of my kind of catchphase for him.
Honestly, how much do you think it would actually take to get him away for Leverkusen at the moment? Because I think you're talking like 60 to 70 million at the moment.
I think it's like 70 to 80 million to get him away right now.
Now maybe add like one or two really good seasons where he gets past his injury.
And the contract is like till 2026, I think, or something like that. Ridiculous. So let's say he has 3 years left on his contract and he lights it up for 2 more seasons. I think it is 100 million likely.
Yeah,
it is 100 million.
I agree.
Likely. Well broken down. His teammate, and we'll just let Kieran go off again here because he is a big Leverkusen fan. Moussa Diaby, the lightning quick Moussa Diaby, who also has a bit of techers on him and is just ridiculous to watch, I must say. What are your thoughts on this guy?
Unlikely, because I think he'll probably be sold before Wirtz for a little bit less than 100 million.
Is he worth 100 million to you?
Honestly, I'm not saying that because I think that he's like better, like in terms of better or worse. I just honestly feel like Diaby will leave before Wirtz, and I think that he'll probably, just because he leaves that little bit early, I think he'll probably go for a little bit less. Because when I say about Wirtz, I'm thinking, okay, if he can get past his injury and have another, if he's already between 60, 70 million, 2 good seasons, and with transfer values now going up again, post-COVID, I can see that likely, but I think Diaby moves maybe before that point where transfer values are sky high and ridiculous again. So I think maybe someone will try and pick him up on the cheap. I think his height is the only thing that, as well, a lot of clubs probably won't be willing to pay tons of money because of his height. They maybe will question how well he do on other leagues. And I think that will kind of rule out a few clubs that are interested, or a few clubs that maybe would spend that type of money.
I just look at him. I just don't see 100 million player in there ever, in my opinion. I don't.
All right. Well, there we go.
This is because the thing is, I partially agree with David. When I say 100 million unlikely, I don't think he'll ever sell for that amount.
Yeah.
I don't think he will ever sell for that amount. Yeah, I don't think he will ever sell for that amount. But I also feel really harsh putting him in it, because I feel like I'm devaluing or degrading him by saying,
it does feel a bit. I would say
it feels so.
I think he does fit this category of players. He looks right in that sort of bill. To be fair, it looks kind of like it fits. I think it fits. There. To be fair, as much as it is probably a bit painful.
Yeah, because when I say that, I feel like they're never worth 100 million. It feels like this player's never worth 100 million. He's like crap. It feels like I'm just calling the player crap, but I know that's not what that tier is. I think he more likely actually.
These are like the 80
more likely
million.
Fits that, to be honest.
These are all the
I think
80 million people.
Yeah.
Well, last Bundesliga player here, and I would say they might be beefing up this green category, because this is another tough one. Christopher Nkunku. He has maybe shown his allegiance to Leipzig and said the only club he would probably go to, he at least envisions, would be PSG, which makes me think 100 million, baby, for this guy, because he sincerely proved to be probably one of the best footballers in Europe this last season, Christopher Nkunku. This guy was absolutely absurd, played under that weird Jesse Marsch system, which was all attack, no defense, but still thrived. Then under the new coaches, I think Tedesco, I think his name is, has done incredible there. He's just had a spectacular season. Probably makes even like a European 11, you would maybe even say, from this season. He's been that good. And the fact that he said the only club he would probably go to is PSG makes me think 100 million here.
I actually think 100 million unlikely.
Wow.
Honestly, because this is the thing. I think he's very good, and he has had an amazing season, rightly deserved Player of the Year.
The contract is running down. Good point. Someone said that contract.
I mean, I don't think that he will go. I know PSG. As soon as you hear PSG, you're kind of like, well, any player who's anywhere decent, PSG splash money, So you just
you
instantly
get to add 30 million to the price tag.
Yeah. You instantly kind of add 1.5%, well, like 50% on top, with them, because they got money. But I don't know. I just feel like it's unlikely. The one big thing that I would like to see from Nkunku is proving himself when he's got defenders in front of him. A lot of the time when he's been effective is when he's been in pockets of space, or when he's been able to get in behind. Right. I'd like to see him actually face defenders and beat defenders, or score with defenders in front of him. I think that's something that he needs to kind of prove. And I think that at the moment he hasn't proved that he can be that type of player. Like, do you see him against a Burnley low block that are literally just letting no space in behind? Do you see him as the one who's just getting the ball and scoring, or sitting in there and getting a header? Maybe. But I think because at the moment he hasn't proved it, I think it's unlikely that it will go for 100 million.
Bundesliga is also a very different league. So like teams like Burnley would cause him trouble if you would have a bit of an adjustment period, because there really are very few teams, apart from probably my Hertha Berlin, that play like Burnley in the Premier League, I would say. So that's a very good point there, Kieran. That's a very good point.
Just again, I'm not really too happy having him alongside Moussa Diaby. When you look at compare the seasons they've had, for me, I think one has clearly had a much better season than the other. For me, I would put Moussa Diaby down to never worth 100 million. With Nkunku, I genuinely do believe 100 million is unlikely. You look at the contract. I think if he had this season off the back of signing a 5-year contract, you would look at maybe 100 million likely. But I do think 100 million unlikely. But Moussa Diaby never worth 100 million.
Love that, Dave.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Love that reorganizing Dave's been doing this whole time, Dave. I'm digging that. I'm digging that energy.
Yeah,
it just doesn't look right to me,
I like the Kane shout as well. Yeah.
Dave hasn't noticed this one, though. SOF asked me to move this one in here. Dave, SOF, while you were agreeing with SOF on the Nkunku, Dave, Kane was accidentally moved into the leave on a free. So maybe we'll address that.
Oh, why? Why?
He's only just clicked after we.
SOF
No, we've got to move him. No, we've got to move him down to never leaving.
I love the way we're pointing out. David's just like smiling.
You shouldn't have.
Like,
You've spoiled
no
it, Kieran. We want to
about.
wait to see how long it would go. We want to wait to see.
No,
how
that
long
hurts me. He's never leaving on a free, lad. He ain't walking away from Tottenham. Come on.
Neymar, this could be an easy one. Was he ever worth 100 million? I want to phrase it as, was he ever worth 100 million? I think he was, because he is.
Yeah.
He is absurd, but I guess you never knew that he was. I think you probably could see the warning signs that he was probably
PSG is being his downfall.
But yeah.
I honestly think he was, but I don't
leave
think
on a free from PSG. 100 million unlikely. I think someone said he could be leaving PSG this summer.
How long has he got left in his contract? I actually have no clue.
He's not too happy there either, though. You know, when you look at these the documentary that was put out there, you can see that maybe I do think his time to PSG is coming to an end. But I'll be honest, I think if he stayed at Barcelona or he moved to Real Madrid or somebody like that, I still think, you have that.
PSG
I think he still stays as one of the best players in the game. But because he went to PSG, he kind of has free reign. He can do what he wants, take holidays when he wants, partying with the owners, etc., etc. And it's kind of like, it's just there's not as much dedication to his talent, to his craft, and I think the move to PSG has really let him down. Whereas if he would have stayed at Barca, Real Madrid, I think he would have much more of a point to prove. The games week in, week out be a lot harder than what they are in the French league. And for me, I just think moving to PSG, he's kind of took his eye off the ball. He knows that. His father knows that as well by looking at the documentary. For me, I do think you'll still get someone to pay 100 million for him, though, Jack. I do.
Interesting.
Contrary to what you just said, maybe I'm completely wrong, and maybe I'm just thinking of this, but it's actually someone else. But I have a feeling I actually saw something posted on Twitter about an interview of him saying that he's actually happy at PSG at the moment. And I think, when is he going to leave PSG and who to? Because I think when is the big question, because I actually think he's never going to be worth 100 million. I think if he goes, maybe it'd be like a Juventus Ronaldo, but not as much, where a club will fork out and going, okay, well, look, he's going to have
leave on a free,
have some value there. I think that depends on how long he's got left in his contract.
I guess I'll check that too.
Yeah.
I just looked at it like, maybe he has come out and done an interview since, but when I looked at that documentary, Kieran, for me, he has been frustrated with how the fans have treated him.
No, I agree with you.
You have to remember they booed him last season and stuff like that. And look, for me, I just think him and his father kind of both alluded to it in the documentary that maybe he has took his eye off the ball a little bit, and maybe that he might need a change of scenery to be able to get back to the player that he was, because he is wasting his talent at PSG, in my opinion. I think if he stays at Barcelona, Real Madrid, he has more of a point to prove than what he does at PSG.
I agree with you. The only reason I brought that interview, that I thought he said into light, is because if he's saying like, "Oh, I'm happy," but then you probably don't see him leaving this season, and you go, "Okay, well, is he going to leave next season? And how long has he got left in his contract?" Which I was asking, because he's only got like 2 or 3 years. You're going, okay, well, another year, that brings it to 2 years. 2 years left, and with his age in there, is he then going for 100 million? I think he'll go for maybe a bit less than that, or maybe it'll go down another year and then move, and he's sold a little bit more on the cheap, because
so it's 2025 is 3 years, Kieran.
2025, 3 years.
So next season you might see some sort of PSG would probably start thinking then about tying him down again. If they don't, they will want to cash in on him. They're not going to let him go for absolutely nothing. So be interesting.
I agree.
Be interesting next year or two.
Very interesting. Mbappe, he just signed a new contract. Will he go for 100 million again, or will he go on a free? I think it's one or the other. It's leave on a free or 100 million again.
Well, he basically owns PSG now, so do you ever see him? Do you ever see him leaving? He has a say in new managers and players.
I think he's still leaving. He still said that.
I think he was still leaving.
He's such a weirdo. Like, he still basically said he wants to play for Real Madrid.
Look, what I will say is, 6 months is a long time in football. A year is an extremely long time in football. Anything can change within that year to make the guy unhappy. I'll be
I say
honest.
leave
I
on a
don't
free.
think Madrid will ever give up their pursuit of this guy. I don't think they will. I think they'll still go for him further down the line.
So it'll be for more than 100 million, or will it be less than 100
No, I think
million?
100
Wait,
Like,
his new
100
contract is only until 2025, right? 3 years.
I think so.
Or is it longer than that? I think it's only. I'm looking here.
Nah, for me, you've got to stick him in the 100
I say he
million.
leaves on a free. I say he leaves on a free.
It says 2025. 2025. So how long
I
do you
see he
really
leaves on
see
a
him
free for
sticking?
Madrid. That's when
Yeah,
he leaves on a free.
I think so. Yeah.
He makes all the money that way.
Could you
anyway.
put Neymar then in the same category then, maybe?
Yeah, he's 30 years old though. Like that's the question, Dave.
But
Like,
th-
you
but
know,
that's
can
what-
he go that long?
That's why I was saying I don't think he's gonna go. I don't think he'll go for 100 million because I think his contract's running down. He's getting a bit older, and at the moment he's already saying I'm happy. I don't think that move to Chelsea that's been linked happens this window. So I just feel like when you kind of then sit in next year, he's having 2 years left, a bit older. Maybe just runs down his contract and leaves on a free, or when there's 1 year left, they sell him for 50, 60 million because he has got that commercial value that, yeah. I feel like he's 100 million unlikely or leave on a free as well. I think it's one of the two.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
Let's keep powering through here. Declan Rice. Do we see Declan Rice going for 100 million at any stage from West Ham? I think the answer is a big fat yes, actually.
Yeah.
I think he is worth 100 million to West Ham, and I don't really see them letting him go for a free. That would be absurd because they have to make money out of it eventually. Maybe he pushes for a situation where he goes for less than 100 million. That could probably happen where like they just have to accept less. But I think it'll be something like this. I think he'll go for more than that.
Guys, I keep going against you for some reason. I don't know why. I
don't know how you could disagree with this.
Honestly, if he goes right now, he's only going for that price tag. He's only going for that. West Ham have already said 150 million. So I don't see him going for anything less than 100 million right now. If West Ham would sell him, maybe 90, they'd just be going like, let's just get it done. Let's just take this 90 million. I don't know. However, I don't know. Like he keeps talking about Mark Noble recently. And I just have a feeling maybe he's going to stay there a few more years. I don't think he goes to Man United. I actually, honestly, don't think he goes to Man United. And I think, who does he go to? Chelsea, or who does he go to?
Maybe goes to Real Madrid.
I think. I think with Rice, look, he's definitely not going to force his move from West Ham. You look at the guy; he does seem to be a loyal guy. But do you know what? I do believe you will see him eventually go for over 100 million. And the reason why I say that, this is a guy that I've kept a very close eye on. Purely because I thought he was going to be a star for Ireland, but he pissed me off with that. But let me explain. I think the reason why he will go for over 100 million is purely because it comes down to the character. You know that no matter how much you pay for this guy, he's still going to come and be the same guy every single day. He's the desire to want to do better in his career, the desire to improve. That's why he opted not to play for Ireland and take that cap and go and get the England call-up. Because he believed in himself. He wants to do better. He wants to win things. And for me, I think he's just a star. I think he's an all-around strong character, wants to improve, and I think 100 million, 100%.
Wouldn't he also, Dave, rather give his club 100 million? Like, if he went for 100 million, like, he'd be thinking that he's doing West Ham a favor because now they have a lot of money to work with. Whereas if he went for, like, a free or, like, pushed his way with like a contract situation where it was like he only went for like 40 million or something like that. He won't ever
do that to West Ham.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I completely agree, Dave. So I feel like he does go for 100 million whenever he leaves, and he probably would feel better about it if he also gave his club 100 million.
The only reason I say that is because his contract ends in 2 years' time. I don't see him leaving this summer because I don't see him going to Man United.
I think he'll renew.
And then he's got a year left. Then if he redoes his contract, if he renews his contract, then it's 100 million likely. If he doesn't renew it within the next year, then 100 million unlikely because he'll have a year left on his deal, and I think West Ham will cash out 75 million, anywhere close to that figure, just because the fear of losing him on a free.
That's
the one caveat. So I think put him in 100 million likely, because most likely thing is he'll probably sign a new contract to West Ham. That'll keep his value up, and it'll probably be something like a 4 or 5 year deal, and that'll help bump his value up.
the thing is, he doesn't need to run his contract down. He's already in the England team. Everyone's already well aware of his talents and his respect and love for West Ham. I think he's in a safe position where he knows he can sign a new contract. He will want to sign a new contract to ensure that West Ham get a good fee for him to help West Ham before he moves on. I do think he's that sort of guy, and I definitely think 100 million is likely. I do not see him running down that contract whatsoever. I think he'll have an agreement in with the club. I'll sign a contract, but as soon as the right money comes in, you let me go.
Well, this is the thing, obviously it was reported by Romano during close to the end of the season that he'd rejected some of the contracts that they'd offered him. But I think that's maybe because he's sitting there going, well, if I'm going to extend him by 3, 4, 5 years, I want a bit more because it's going to guarantee you X amount if you do sell me in the future. So I think there will be a deal struck, and that's why I think 100 million is likely. But if any point during the season he doesn't sign that contract during this season, if that for some reason, whatever it is, doesn't get over the line, then I think he won't sell for 100 million. But if they get that contract done, which is most likely going to happen, then 100 million likely.
I think we should keep trying to beef up this 100 million likely because I think it's just really fun. It brings out good debates here. Rafael Leao recently signed a new contract with AC Milan. If he ever were to leave AC Milan, would he go for 100 million? He probably is worth that to AC Milan, to be fair. But would he ever go for maybe 100 million at some stage in his career? Do we think?
I don't think so. I agree with David. I don't think so. I think he's a decent player. I think he's a very good player, to be honest. But I don't think he goes for that much.
All right. Nice.
I think if he transfers, he doesn't.
I just don't see it in him, Jack. I do not see that value.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. Just, maybe anybody was maybe secret Leao fans, would have been a passionate argument. But Tonali, Dave, I know you're a big fan of his. Could you see him going for 100 million at some stage? Yes.
Do you know what, Jack?
Here we go.
I'll be honest, I'm absolutely a huge fan of this guy. I just love what he's about, his passing ability and stuff like that. But you know what, Jack? I just don't think he's one of these players that will end up going for 100 million. I think he's underrated and undervalued a lot, in my opinion. I really like him, but I do not see him going for 100 million. I'll just be honest, I don't. But I really like him.
Kieran, you probably agree with that? I mean, he is probably the most talented midfielder, probably for his age group, at least in his sort of defensive midfielder position. He is probably one of the most talented. But
I don't think he goes for that much because I don't think he leaves Milan in the next 4-5 years, and by then he's going to be 27. And I don't think really. You think he goes before that?
I think he goes before that. I think it's only a matter of time.
Where do you think he goes then? If you think he leaves before that,
I'd love him to come to Tottenham, but I don't know, lad. I think. Look, Madrid could be a possibility. I don't think he'll ever go to PSG. I think all depending whether Juve get Pogba or not. I think that could definitely be a possibility. I think Premier League could definitely be a possibility. And I think this guy is secretly on a lot of clubs' radars. I really do.
I bet. I definitely bet.
I just do not see him ever reaching 100 million, though. I just don't think he has that sort of value in him. But I really do.
Dave, I'm gonna pull your heartstrings again. Just got somebody get a quick drink. Gravenberch, Dave, he is going to Bayern for a very, very small fee. But would you see him leaving Bayern in the future for 100 million?
100%. 100%. Again, he's a bit similar to Jude Bellingham, in my opinion. I don't know whether you agree or not, Kieran. I think you look at the guy, I think from such a young age, people could see he was going to be an absolute specimen of an athlete. I think he's got absolutely raw talent. I think you can definitely see him evolving to be one of the best midfielders in the game. Very good at passing, shooting, tackling. He can dribble a ball as well. For me, I think his all-around game is fantastic. I know he's gone to Bayern Munich, but I think he sees that as a step on his radar. I do see him moving on from there in another couple of years. And for me, I think 100 million, very, very likely.
I actually think 100 million unlikely because he's gone to Bayern. Purely because he's gone to Bayern.
You don't think his talent will be that good that it'll force the best clubs to come and get him?
I think a lot of the best clubs will try and get him, but generally, we don't. How many players have left Bayern Munich for 100 million in the past?
Yeah.
And I think generally Bayern Munich, they have players, they have them there for a good amount of time, and then they're even willing to sell players for less than maybe what they could get if they really pushed clubs. purely because a lot of the time, if they're willing to sell players, it's because they have players lined up or they've already got someone else that they're coming through the door. And that's the only reason I say because he's going to buy in 100 million unlikely. Will his transfer market valuation be that likely? Do I think he'll get 100 million plus move? I think that's unlikely.
Do you know why I think he will? Just hear me out on this one. Now,
it was one of the best highlight reels we've seen on this channel, I must say. The guy's a freak.
He's unbelievable. But yeah.
But we have to remember, Bayern Munich are now going down a route where they are starting to bring in some of the younger guys, and they've come out and said this themselves, that this is the route that they're going to have to go down to, where they're bringing in the younger guys, to come in and hopefully develop them and end up selling them off. So somewhere along the line, they've had to change their business model because of COVID and stuff like that. And I believe they're bringing this guy in with a vision that they know that value this guy will create in the next couple of years. And I think they will be in a position to maybe have to look at maybe accepting that sort of offer. And if they're in that position, which I read they were, which did come from themselves, I think personally, I can see maybe Bayern might just hold out for as much as they can, if they do need that money.
I can see that, Dave. Maybe they are switching gears and they're just maybe letting the big oil rich, kind of, oil money states, just pay them 100 million for all the players that they scout ahead of time. I could kind of see that happening. I'm going to also say the 100 million likely category, because as much as I agree with Kieran that Bayern don't really probably care about selling a player for that much, they probably will always settle for less. Maybe Gravenberch is sort of that special of a player. And I do agree, maybe they are sort of switching tactics and switching gears at least a bit, transfer wise, with how maybe they're doing their team. I could see that.
I also say unlikely, because I see that unlikely, maybe I'm viewing this unlikely category wrong, but I see that unlikely category as, okay, there's a chance they might go for 100 million, but I definitely don't think they're never worth 100 million. But there is also a chance they don't go for more than 100 million, which I say
maybe really
unlikely.
How you look at it. I think how you really look at it is they're more likely to not go for 100 million, and I think that's what you're guessing, with Bayern. Where I don't know, I could see that 100 million.
Yeah, I think maybe
I'm 50-50 on it. I'm kind of a 50. I'm 50-50 on it. I could see both. I could see an 80 million. Change that top
category to 150 million plus, and then one in between that says around 100 million.
Bayern's new strategy is to buy players between 20 and 22, bring them in with huge huge release clauses in their contract, and sell them on in the future, purely because the pandemic has made them take a major hit. They can't afford to go and buy the big European superstars, and they've come out and said this themselves. And I think it'd be very interesting to see if Gravenberch has that release clause in his contract, because they have said that, and that's the whole reason why they have that manager in there to do now. What's his name? Like the skinny jean wearing guy.
Nagelsmann.
You look at what he's done at Leipzig, where traditionally they kind of use a lot of young players, get them through the system and stuff like that. And I think that's why they've brought him in to do that at Bayern Munich with their new transfer strategy of bringing in 20 to 22-year-olds and then sell them on for huge fees.
Yeah, I think that's actually that's probably a good shout, to be honest. I think maybe
someone who I want to I agree, Dave. Think a passionate argument as well. I love it. Sergey, as much as I love him, not going for it ever. He's just too old by now, and I think he's going to at least run out his contract till there's like a good enough price so that somebody can afford him. Let's look at this. Phil Foden could be interesting. Never leaving Man City?
Yeah, never leaving. I actually don't think he leaves. I think if he does
Connor
leave,
Gallagher?
Late in his career.
Connor Gallagher, who rates him? Because I would say he almost made my player this season.
That's
He almost made
never worth
100 million. Unlikely, never worth 100 million. Never worth
it.
Good player, but will never reach that price tag, I don't think.
Interesting.
James Ward-Prowse level.
Jonathan David.
Never worth 100 million.
Canadian. Never worth?
Yeah, never worth, unfortunately.
Don't see it.
It's going to seem like I hate these people just saying never worth this price tag, but
no,
it's not.
It's not a diss to them, I think, in any way whatsoever.
Look, let's all be clear about this. The players we're talking about, I was saying, they're better than all of us here on the panel, but it doesn't mean we can't say that they're not worth 100 million.
I think what you're trying to say is like if you're worth 100 million, it means like you're basically the best player in the world practically, like in one of your positions. Like I don't know if you could say that with most of this list. Bukayo Saka, will he never leaving? Would he, if he were to leave, would he go for 100 million?
I think never worth 100 million because I think if he leaves Arsenal, it will be within the next 2 to 3 years when his contract's running out, and I think then he won't sign a new contract with Arsenal. So
I think he could be Sterling's replacement at City, Kieran. What do you think?
Yeah, I think there's potential there. I think has Pep not already said quite a bit about Saka in the past and liking him this season? I'm pretty sure I've heard him talk about Saka, in high praise. Not saying like, oh, I want to sign him, just praising him highly. And I think when he's got 2 years left in his contract, I think he'll probably. I don't think he'll leave on a free, but I think he'll leave because his contract's ending. Arsenal probably won't be paying him the same amount that he's probably being offered from other clubs in the Premier League, and I think he'll probably go to one of them.
Yeah,
that's how I feel. But yeah,
Bruno Guimaraes, one of my favorite players in the world. Would he ever leave Newcastle? And if he did leave Newcastle, this could be an interesting one because Newcastle, they have all the bargaining power in the world. Could he leave on a free?
Do you know what, Jack? I think he's similar to Tonali, don't ever think he'll reach 100 million. But I think he's secretly that everybody, sees the sort of player he is. I think he's very similar to Tonali.
What does he leave Newcastle for, do you think, Dave? Because I think he doesn't stay at Newcastle forever. I bet he does make that big move.
I don't know,
Who knows? Yeah, with Newcastle 6 years from now, who knows what sort of club they'd be.
Look, Brazilians love the money. I mean, you look at Neymar and the money he's on at PSG.
Well,
Roberto Carlos, Ronaldo back in the day, the money, Ronaldinho.
Never leaving, maybe.
I mean, they love money, Jack.
Never leaving, and they love him already. He already is like a cult hero there, practically.
This is what I was thinking of. Like, you think that Newcastle are the richest club in the world right now. So anytime he's, I don't know, this club, right, mate, we'll double your wages. Obviously the financial fair play.
Yeah, but
in inverted commas, financial fair play.
Performance incentives. Yeah, performance incentives.
Just exaggerate their sponsorships like City done. They'll never be.
They'll just get a sponsor from a company owned by the owners and just inflate the sponsorship price. Yeah.
I'm just going all over the place here. Anthony from Ajax.
Never worth it because I feel once he gets his move, he probably stays at the club he's at for a good while, and I don't think he sells from Ajax for 100 million. That's it. That's the only reason.
Yeah. I don't even know if he has the numbers even to be worth 100 million yet either.
Well, that's what I mean. Like if he leaves him now or in the next few years, I don't think he'll go for 100 million. And then I think when he actually does move club, I don't think he moves after a 2 or 3 year spell. I think he probably stays there for a while.
Interesting. Trent, would he ever leave Liverpool?
Never leaving. Liverpool boy.
I don't think he leaves.
Like that answer. Darwin Nunez, the guy who's already valued at 80 million pounds for Benfica. Could he go for 100 million? I don't really see it happening.
This guy should never be worth 100 million. I'm sorry.
He's actually so funny. He's the definition of that category. Very much so. The definition of that category, the never worth 100 mil.
He's actually.
I think how passionate Kieran was there.
Honestly, I think he's actually the most overhyped player in Europe right now, and it's by people who have never watched him play. I honestly believe that. The amount of people I see saying like, "Oh my god, he's unbelievable," because they see the numbers he scored, but I don't think half the people saying that have actually ever watched him play. Because every time I watched him, he has looked quite clunky, quite raw, and he is getting goals, but you've also got to remember Carlos Vinicius also was the top goal scorer in the Portuguese league, in Liga NOS. So, True. Just because he's scoring goals in that league doesn't mean he's unbelievable. I think he's still so raw, and I think that price tag at the moment is ridiculous money for what you're actually getting. Any Premier League clubs that takes that on this season, for any of the ones that are being linked, I guarantee people will be calling him a flop because of the price tag.
If he was that good, a big team in the Premier League or one of the big clubs would have a deal wrapped up by now for him, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Gabriel Martinelli, would he ever leave Arsenal?
He's not even worth 100 million either, to be honest.
Yeah, I think he might leave, but never will.
Maybe
Yeah, but
I'll
I
be
think Klopp
honest,
loves.
I think
I think
him and
Klopp
Saka
loves
should
him
be the
at
same category.
35 million. I think Klopp loves him at 35, 40 million. I don't think Klopp likes him at 100 million.
You
No,
think
to be
Saka
honest.
will never be worth 100 million, Dave?
No, never. No, I
Just-
think he's
yeah.
overrated.
Someone, I think Zoe DS said he'll leave. Apparently, he wants a release clause in his next contract. I thought he maybe leaves in the next year or so if Arsenal aren't performing well, and maybe other clubs are sniffing around him because he's doing quite well for them. But if he's looking for a release clause, I mean, I assume that he's probably not going to accept that release clause unless in his contract unless it's something below 100 million that's quite reasonable for teams to come and get him.
But again, I look at the likes of Saka, Martinelli. Okay, yeah, they're decent players, but when I look at them, do they have what it takes to push on to become that 100 million player to push on to the next level? I don't see it, to be honest with you. I just do not see it. I don't think they have what it takes to be that 100 million pound player. With a 100 million pound player, you're kind of getting a bit of everything from that player, a guy that can do everything. With these two guys, I do not see it in them.
Yeah,
honestly, I think they're no better than Anthony. I'll be honest. I think they're no better than Anthony.
If Anthony were in their
bold.
position,
that's bold.
That's bold.
To be honest.
We'll see what the scout have to say about that, Dave.
Yeah.
Chiesa? Anybody a big Chiesa fan? Could he go for 100 million from Juventus? Yeah. He is lightning. Like he is, and he has also his energy and his passion, as well as just his dynamism. He's a great finisher. He's just a bundle of energy, I must say.
What about never leaving, Jack? Maybe.
How old is Chiesa?
He is a Fiorentina man. Like he left his boyhood club.
How old is Chiesa now?
21, 22.
Because
could be 23.
I do feel I don't know. I really don't know because I feel like
24.
The potential is the potential for him to go for 100 million is there, but do I see it happening? Maybe not. Not really. I think he can. He definitely can, but do I see it happening? A little less unlikely. So maybe unlikely, but definitely has the potential to be in that.
Yeah. He's a tough one. He's a tough one. Mason Mount. Is he ever going to leave Chelsea? And is he worth 100 million?
He won't sell for more than 100 million. Yeah.
He's Chelsea. Reece
Even
James
if he
as
does
well?
leave, I don't think.
Reece James.
I
think he could end up leaving Chelsea at some stage.
I could see that happening. He's a defender as well. Like maybe he might see himself in like a Real Madrid or something. Maybe he might leave just England in general.
I see him maybe leaving Chelsea, but I think 100 million is unlikely again because he's a defender and he's a right back. He's not like we said before, those names that are bringing in all that commercial revenue and being the poster boys and selling shirts.
So is he not worth 100 million?
Or
is he 100 million unlikely, Kieran?
I don't think he'll ever sell to a club for 100 million. But I think that he is a player that has a lot of worth and has a lot of potential.
Yeah.
I don't think he's ever worth 100 million, no matter how high I rate him. I do rate him very high, but I don't think he's ever worth that. Lautaro Martinez not worth 100 million. I would say the definition of that sort of player.
Yeah.
I don't think. Yeah, I think especially right now. Would he ever go for 100 million in the future, though? I mean, that is something that we are predicting.
No, I think honestly, the price that we were being told last summer is probably around the maximum. He'll probably go that 70, 75 million kind of price tag. I think that's what he'll go as his maximum price tag if he leaves the club. Christian
Pulisic, I think, also falls in not worth 100 million.
Yeah.
He probably was at one stage at Dortmund, but it's just really fallen apart.
What's gone wrong with him, Jack? Because this guy was
injuries. I mean, he's had injury after injury after injury. He's
what is he
the
LeBron James of soccer?
No, LeBron James. That'd be incorrect because LeBron James has actually had an impeccable non-injury career.
No. I mean, the show Pawn Stars. Someone brought a signed Pulisic shirt in there. And they're like, yo, this guy's like the LeBron James of soccer.
That's right. I do know that LeBron James. Oh, that's cringeworthy. Dave, I think he's just made of glass. That's what's happened. And so he's never had a proper chance to really get a consistent spell in the team. He seems to make the squad. Whenever he is like consistently available, he makes the squad. But he's just injured all the time. I think that's
when I've seen him play, I've been extremely let down by his decision making, if I'm honest. I think his decision making is a bit it's not the best in my opinion.
I think he's an exceptional dribbler. and has unbelievable close control and really manipulates the ball really well. But sometimes he just seems like he's one of those players that does seem like he's up for it or he's not up for it as well in certain games whenever I've seen him. Weston McKennie, unfortunately, hopefully I don't get blasted today for my thoughts on the guy.
Can I actually
not worth $100 million, I think, as well. Please don't kill me.
Can I actually suggest some other players that you've got in there that I can, since we're going on this streak of never
we're kind of going on
million,
like we're narrowing it down here. Yeah,
I feel like you can whack Sancho and Luis Diaz in there instantly.
No.
I think Sancho could go for $100 million again. I think he could go for $100 million again.
Same as Luis Diaz eventually as well.
Really? But Luis Diaz is 25. He's 25.
Luis Diaz is 25 or 26. Yeah. That would be tough.
And he's only just joined Liverpool.
Yeah, I think he's $100 million unlikely. And they're trying to get rid of $100 million unlikely. But I think Sancho is $100 million likely. I think he is $100 million likely.
Really?
Yeah.
I think he could go for $100 million again. I could see him leaving Man United.
I think he could, but I don't think it will happen. I think, honestly, I'm not doubting his ability. I just don't think he will. I think United will be stubborn and just not sell. They'll be that club that's stubborn, not sell, and then when his contract's run down, that's when he'll leave on a cheap deal, or when he's thrown up, when he's just basically look at Pogba. They let him go on a free to Juventus. They paid however many odd million that it was to bring him back, and then just let him whittle his contract down, and then left for free. And if you look at other players like. But who was the last Man United player you can remember selling for anywhere close to that type of money?
But he's still I
see the value in it.
Yeah,
I know, but I honestly, but I think he is that talented as well. But I just don't. Let's leave him in there because it's a democracy in 2v1, and there's a lot of players to get like after.
I think you're raising a good fight here, Kieran. But I just don't really see them settling for less, and. They spent so much on him originally, so I just don't see how they would settle for less. I think they would settle for something close to the $100 million. Maybe you might win, Kieran, because it would end up being like 95 or something like that. That's maybe what they would sell him for. De Jong, rumored to leave this season, might not leave this season. Would he go for $100 million in the future, though, at any stage in his career? I think he's now 24 or 25. I
think this is the definition of unlikely. Every rumor that comes out, he keeps saying, "I'm happy at Barcelona. I don't want to leave." So I don't think he leaves. And I think when he does, it's very unlikely that he probably goes for that because it'd be in his old years.
I'd agree with that.
But let's look at the other Barca wonder kids. Pedri. I mean, he's valued at $1 billion. Release
Put the ball up there.
Honestly. Both of these, if they ever go anywhere, $100 million likely or never leaving. It's one or the other. There's literally no in between. It's $100 million.
Yeah, let's guess
likely
between the two.
Or never
Pedri, I don't know them personally at all, but do you see Pedri ever leaving Barcelona?
There's always a chance both of them leave purely because of the crisis Barcelona are in. So I think we should put them both up at $100 million likely because you can't guarantee they're going to stay. Because if a club comes in and tests them, Barcelona have no option but to sell.
I agree. That's a good point. I agree. And also because I think Barcelona will maybe even sacrifice one of them to maybe with knowing that they have one of the others. And they have.
I also meant to put Ansu Fati in here, but I don't see him. Would Ansu Fati also go in there, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. Probably.
So, I guess there you are, everybody. Vinicius Jr., let's stay La Liga, everybody. $100 million likely, I think.
If he goes $100 million
to Real Madrid.
likely,
they probably don't even have a price on him, I think, Kieran.
Maybe not leaving. Maybe never leaving.
Yeah, this is so weird because we don't know any of the players personally, and there's like, it's such a because some of these players are so young as well. You have to. This is a thing.
Real Madrid is such a fun club. I feel like for him, like he just gets to be the star man. Like he and Benzema are vibing. Once Benzema leaves, he'll be the new star man. Winning Champions Leagues, I'd imagine, is very fun.
I have a feeling never leaving. I think if you look at the longevity of a lot of their players, like we said, the midfielders, look at how long Ronaldo, Bale, Benzema, look at how long they've stayed there. I think they'll probably hold on to Vinicius as one of their star players going forward. For a long time.
I think never leaving. Yeah. Where do you go from Real Madrid? I mean, players that end up at Real Madrid tend to not go really anywhere else. So for me, I think definitely never leaving, I would say.
Even if you look at the likes of Isco and players like that, look at how long they've been at Madrid.
Yeah, he stayed there forever.
You know what I mean?
Great point.
Yeah.
Somebody who I think is one of the best midfielders in the world and probably for that 3-5-2 and creative midfielder role as much as I want Sergei, this guy has probably a much higher ceiling in my eyes than even Sergei does. Nicola Barella, could he leave Inter Milan for £100 million? I don't know if I see that happening.
I
But
think
I do rate him that highly.
unlikely.
I think he is worth £100 million to them.
I think unlikely. And the only reason I say it is because I'm not sure what their financial situation is. They're trying to make a profit this window.
It's
Will
like
that be
Barca,
the same next summer? If that's the same next summer, like, I mean, look, honestly, we shouldn't be looking at some of their players for the prices that are being banded around for some of their players.
Yeah, Bastoni shouldn't be worth
like,
£50
yeah,
million.
Bastoni, they, if they weren't in such a financial crisis trying to make money, they'd be asking for a lot more money. So I think when you look at Barella, if they're willing to take cuts on player prices to get themselves out of that. And if you look at what the rumors are of them looking to sell one player a window to make that money up, I think they would even take price cuts on certain players to just try and get a deal over the line so they can say, that's it, we don't have to sell anyone, and they can try and improve. So, yeah.
I'd agree with that. I'd agree with 100 million unlikely, but, if Inter maybe weren't in the financial state, you could definitely see it reaching 100 million for sure.
Yeah.
Tchouaméni, he's about to probably go to Real Madrid. I think he might be in that never leaving category after Real Madrid. I think he's going to replace Casemiro as like the new guy, forever in that sort of holding midfield role.
I agree. And what's been banded around 80 million. So I guess that means 100 million not happening.
Yeah. Rafinha, could he ever go for 100 million in his career? Because he is an exceptional player.
I think the price is being rumored to pass.
Could someone say that?
Yeah,
could someone say
never worth. I think never worth, because the price that's being banded around is in between, I think around like 60 million or 45 million to Barcelona. I can't remember what the figure was, to be honest, off the top of my head, but I know it wasn't over 60 million to Barcelona, and he's trying to push that deal. And generally with South American players, once they're in, Spain, they generally don't leave. I think it's because the culture is maybe a little bit more similar to, their home countries. So, I think when they get to those teams, they generally like to stay there. Yeah.
Not only that, though, he's 25 years of age, and he's nowhere near the level of what Neymar or somebody.
Yeah.
He's nowhere near like the level of what like Neymar was at that age and stuff. And I don't see the 100 million. I see the value in him. I don't see the 100 million in him. Definitely not.
Gvardiol, we forgot about a Bundesliga player here. Could he go for? I guess we said center backs. I mean, we answered.
I think 100 million unlikely. I think it really depends on when he leaves. I think that's
like at even the club after Leipzig. Let's say the club after Leipzig.
Well, then it depends on who he goes to. Like I think 100 million unlikely, because if we're saying, okay, well, it depends on what age he leaves. He's only 19 and he's doing this at the moment, and clubs are interested in buying him, but for less than 100 million. But what about the club after? We've then got to predict what team he's going to after. And at the moment, I don't think we really know what team that is to give a likely, maybe.
Croatians don't really ever go for that sort of money either.
I think there is potential for him to reach that 100%.
He could be one of the most expensive center backs of all time. I could see him being one of the most expensive center backs.
If they not said like the rumored price is like they would not let him go for anything less than like 70 million, or am I thinking of Bastoni?
I just mean even after Leipzig, I could see him.
Yeah, but I mean, if he's what I was saying is like if he's banned at that price now when he's 19, if he keeps developing the way he has and goes to a club that is one of those clubs that's just below the top clubs like Madrid, City, then maybe you could see him going on for 100 million. But the only reason I'd say unlikely is because I think his next transfer is under 100 million. And because we don't know his next club, there is no suggested team. I don't think we can maybe say likely. Because the next one could be to City or something. Yeah, Nathan Ake out and they bring Gvardiol in.
How is that guy still there?
Osimhen, he's valued at a very high amount. I forget his age, but he's not old by any means. I think he's like, 24 or something? Like maybe 26?
Yeah, I think 24. I'll tell you now.
He could be
23.
23. I think he's 100 million unlikely, but he is being valued at a very high amount at this moment in time.
Yeah,
I think he's overrated.
I think his price is. I think
he is a bit overrated too, Dave. I think he is an exceptional player, but
I think never were 100 million.
That's honestly what I feel. That's what I feel like this move now, where if he goes this summer or next summer, that will be the highest he'll go for.
Yeah,
personally.
interesting. Never worth 100 million. I like that. Dusan Vlahovic, will he go for 100 million in the future after Juventus?
Yeah. Again, I look at him. I think you look at the size of the guy, Jack. It's hard to look at him and just say he doesn't have everything to become one of the best strikers in world football in the next 4 or 5 years. I think definitely 100 million is likely, and I would keep him up there.
I think he's worth that in the future. I mean, he is exceptional. Like, he is exceptional. And
again,
here's the thing, though. Like, he could go down the Holland route, though, where maybe he runs out his contract.
No,
well,
I don't see it.
The only reason I'm not going to comment because I really don't know. I'm just thinking Mbappe probably leaves, and goes somewhere else apart from PSG in the future. Haaland's at City. Where else? Who else is picking up that 100 million price tag? PSG.
United.
Does he
United
go to
be
PSG
for somebody
from
in the next year or in the next couple of years? To
United,
kind of fill that void.
it depends if. But would he want to go to United? Depends on if they build back to where they were. Because if they stay at that current rate of where they are,
but very rarely players turn down United, though. To be fair, even though no matter what state they're in, it is very rare. United players turn down the opportunity to go there.
But I think that's because they were dominant 10 years ago. It's quite recent, but you go 5-10 years in the future, it's like Arsenal. Like, the thing is, a lot of kids maybe in England or like English players would still probably go to Arsenal if they were doing well because of how good they were 10, 15, 20 years ago. But the more time that goes on where they're not consistently getting back to where they were, the less attractive they become over time. And I think that's the only thing with United. I think it depends on how long it takes them to get back to that level.
Oyarzabal, he is that, like, here's the funny thing with those Basque clubs is that I expect him to go for a huge fee, but I think he's the 100 million unlikely category, and he's probably actually not worth 100 million. I was going to say that. I do really like Oyarzabal, but what's funny about the Basque sort of clubs is that they do sell for big money. Like, they're not letting that guy run out his contract. They're not letting him negotiate some sort of situation. It's going to be the same thing with Iñaki Williams. It's going to be this, if I don't really rate Iñaki Williams, but like it'd be the same thing. He'll go for an exorbitant fee. It's just how it is with those clubs because,
you create a lot of value around their players and credit.
But they wait to produce these players, right? And then these players keep these clubs alive because they don't really buy many players, the Basque clubs, right?
But isn't it like Atletico Bilbao? Like, they're not like they only want players from the Basque region. So that's where the value in their players come from.
It's this whole approval process where it's like they have to be either really connected to the region, from the region, somehow like have some sort of connection to it that can be explained. It has to be been there a long time, whatever it may be, like it has. So Dave, I think players like Oyarzabal, interestingly, kind of like fund the club, like they keep the club alive, when they sell these guys on. So I think he'll probably sell for like 60, 70 million. Probably.
Like, you look at Munayin could have went anywhere, but again, found it very hard to get out of that. So I just don't see it.
Maybe the never leaving. Interesting. That'd be tough on him.
Could be.
It's so hard. Like I said before, a lot of these young players.
They only expect big prices.
Yeah. This thing that's hard with this list, right, is a lot of these people on this list are from the ages of like their teens to like 23. They've still got another good 10, 12 years, maybe more, with the way footballers are going nowadays playing. So when you think like you're predicting the next 10 years,
all the 100 million pound players, the trend is very clear. In order to be a 100 million pound player, you have to be below a certain age. Clearly, by the looks of it, because
I think that's right.
I think it's like 26 or 27. I think he's close to the prime of his career, if I'm not mistaken. But
don't forget, the likes of Mbappe, Haaland, and all would have been up there. Only the fact that you're looking at the length of their contract, same as Neymar.
The club is
otherwise all them players would be up there.
If you went back,
the club
last
is a
season,
huge factor too. It's like, how does the club handle business? Is another thing we're looking at. Like, how do clubs behave?
Well, football changes so much. If you asked me last season about Mbappe, I would have said 100 million likely. Like, there's not even debate. But now we signed a new contract to PSG, which you're like, okay,
He's
maybe he
leaving
leaves on a free.
Like, yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, 1 year could change this list entirely. One player picks up an injury or one player has a standout season. You go, okay, well, no, okay, I was wrong about this person. Football has so many ups and downs. It's predicting about their current level and, projecting that, which, can always change.
We look up
Last
back on
one
this list
here.
in 10 years' time.
I can't wait to actually maybe do a reaction video to this one maybe in 10 years' time. Who knows? Delict, 100 million unlikely. Yeah. 100 million?
No, I'll go 100 million.
The one center back to become 100 million, Dave. That's your prediction. He is, let me confirm. He is the fourth most expensive center back of all time with a 67.5 million pound fee that he originally.
And Juventus isn't his final resting place, I feel, either. I think Premier League, I think maybe one of the little rich La Liga clubs. For me, I think if any centre back is going to go for 100 million, I think this guy's on course to do it.
Wow.
I feel it's 100 million unlikely, personally.
Yeah, I think it is too.
I think it is. He's got 2 years left. I think if he signs a deal, it's maybe like not a long-term contract. If it's a long-term contract, I think he stays, and that's because he's signed a long-term contract because he commits there. If he doesn't sign a long-term contract, I think because it's not a long-term contract, 100 million unlikely. That's the only reason I say that. But,
no, I'd say for 100 million
unlikely.
unlikely.
Yeah.
Well, then there you are, everybody. That is the end of the show. We went through so many different players here. And so this is the last part of the show where each guy is going to make their prediction for the next 100 million pound player. We have Jude Bellingham, Jamal Musiala, Florian Wirtz. Oh, sorry. Yeah, the two at the bottom are actually just Trent and Chiesa. It's just their face.
Right. Yeah, I couldn't see
that. Their face didn't crop very well. For some reason, Tiermaker doesn't allow me to delete them. So I just had to leave.
Sean wants to know where Romero is, Jack.
Yeah, we decided I didn't include any center backs, I guess, but I did include Gvardiol and Delict, so I guess I lied. Sean, I'm going to probably, if I were red-faced, I would be red-faced right now. Like, I am a bit embarrassed by that, because I said that I wasn't going to include in center backs, but I embarrassingly did include some center backs, or at least a couple of center backs, so I don't even have an explanation, and Romero should be in here. I don't even have an explanation. I'm going to be honest here, Dave. I'm not going to talk my way out of this. Like some people, I'm not going to talk my way out of this. Just going to sit here a bit embarrassed.
Just to appease Sean, I would put Romero on 100 million likely. If we were to do it, that's where I'd put up.
Yeah. Would he be like Delict? I think he's 100 million value to Levy, so you could put him in the 100 million. Unlikely or 100 million likely. It's
just my same thing like that I kind of have with Kulusevski. I think if they could keep going in the same trajectory they're going, I just ultimately think you've seen it time and time again at Tottenham with, Madrid coming in, Gareth Bale, Luka Modric. I mean, with the age they're at now, if they keep going the way they're going, there's always going to be that possibility.
I think 100 million likely, and because the deal that's reported if we sign him when we sign him on a permanent is another 5-year deal because it was 6 years this season. Then we sign him. It's a 5-year deal. So it's a 5-year deal. Yeah. And he is quickly, now people are towards the end of the season have started to kind of go, okay, well, this guy's probably one of the 3 best Premier League centre-backs. And he's 24.
Next season.
Yeah. Exactly. You put another quality defender in that back line, he probably looks even better because the back line's even better. And then you're talking 5 years on the deal. He's quite young, especially for players nowadays.
100 million likely.
I think 100 million likely because I think we probably wouldn't sell for below that.
I don't think he goes to another Premier League team either. I think he would go to like a Real Madrid or something, to be fair. Like Romero.
Yeah, I think that's probably the deal.
I think he probably likes Tottenham enough that he probably wouldn't even go to another Premier League team unless we just absolutely free-falled. But if we were to make a prediction from this list here of the 100 million likelies, we have Vlahovic, we have Gavi, Pedri, Sancho, Gravenberch, Rice, Wirtz, Musiala, Bellingham. I agree. I think the next most likely 100 million pound player is going to be Jude Bellingham. I would agree. I think Jude Bellingham will be the next one. All right.
I think actually if we're all in agreement with that. I think
anybody would be after Bellingham. Maybe we just make a quick prediction on that. Who would be after Bellingham of that list?
Liverpool,
maybe Rice,
United, Chelsea. Yeah, Rice definitely has the potential as well. But I just think you look at Bellingham, his age, the type of like you can mold him into anything you want him to be, Jack. And I think, look, for me, you look at the likes of City, Liverpool, Chelsea. You can't write United off because they would spend that sort of money. I think, look, he suits them. He comes in as homegrown Jack. Squad registration. He's English. And I think eventually he'll want to get back to the Premier League. And the Premier League is where all the money's at nowadays. So I think definitely I would be putting my money on him, maybe potentially Rice, to becoming the next £100 million player.
Yeah. I think I agree with that. I think City going for Bellingham. I think with the likes of Gundogan going, Fernandinho's just left. So I think that Bellingham goes there next. I think he goes City. I think that's the next deal, to be honest, or the next place for Bellingham. That's the place I see him at. If not Liverpool, but I don't know if they would be willing to chalk up 100 million because they don't generally spend that on players. I think it will be City, and then I think it'll be followed by Declan Rice to Chelsea or someone.
I like that.
The big question, I think it'll probably be to Chelsea, but I don't know.
I don't know why. I just feel like when players go to Man City, they're a bit soulless. It annoys me, It's just because of what City is. It's not against
a bit
them.
of a betrayal.
If I was in their position and they were offering me the sort of money and everything else and the trophies they're winning, look, I'd probably do it. But at the same time, it's kind of like I do feel like they're a bit soulless. They're selling their soul,
I agree, Dave. I felt that way with Jovetic. I felt that way with Holland. Holland immediately went from one of my favorite players to kind of don't really like him very much now. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Dave. I know exactly what you mean.
As a Tottenham fan, if I had the choice, I'd obviously go to Tottenham. But if I wasn't being offered to play at Tottenham, which isn't filling a life dream, and City was sitting there, I would take it. Decent money, you're going to win trophies, you're going to be playing in a good team, and if you can get in, The thing is, obviously, we look at City right now, it's quite lifeless. There's not really much history in terms of what they're winning now. We don't associate with City from the past. But the thing is, in 20 years' time, the kids of now that watching City win everything will grow up and see them how we see United.
Yeah, they'll be the new Man United. They'll be the new Pep will be the new Sir Alex Ferguson. Yeah, all that sort of jazz. But everybody, very, very long stream. I think we absolutely powered through it. Very good work by the lads here. We had over 70 at one stage, but it has dropped a lot. And I should have put Kieran's link in there. So I haven't done him probably the right service. But everybody, his link is also in the title. I tagged him in the title of the video as well. So there's no excuse not to show Kieran a bit of support. And now he's putting some videos back up on the channel. He has a Twitter that's also becoming very active as well. But Kieran, anything you want to plug, maybe Twitter-wise, YouTube-wise, and we've also really appreciate you putting in a big shift in today, my man, especially after a day at work.
Well, I will just apologise for the amount I probably spoke at times. I probably went on a bit too much. But I think, like you said, everywhere that people can find me, pretty much YouTube and Twitter are the main two platforms. And obviously, like you said, the Twitter is in the description, and the channel. Obviously, you can either click on my name in the video title or the link that Jack has put in the comment section. So any of those two places, if you can go check out or go follow me over there, that'd be massively appreciated.
You are, everybody. Do show Kieran the support that he did deserve. He's also, been very easy to work with time-wise, because I am trying to be able to put out these sort of like at least weekly, at least once a week kind of live streams for you guys. Seems like people have really enjoyed it. We've had really good numbers each time that we've done it, so I do want to keep doing it. Appreciate you, Dave, for coming on and filling in for Darius during this time period, putting in a good shift as well. I'm not sure. Maybe we have something coming up on the Irish Hotspur soon. Maybe if anybody in the Irish Army that's listening right now.
Yeah, look, I
know we have stuff coming up tomorrow and maybe Saturday, but anything tonight, I guess we'll figure it out.
Look, I'm thinking about it. I'm in two minds whether to do it or not. I mean, there's a small bit of news out there, but is it enough? I'm not sure. Look, I'm in two minds. I'll let people know when I decide. But look, ultimately, probably thank God you had me here instead of Darius, because if you had Darius, you'd still be going 5 hours later, because I know what you three are like when you get going. But no, honestly, I want to say thank you to yourself and Kieran, Jack. I mean, I actually really had fun doing this. I only looked there when you said time has gone by. It's been 2 hours. Honestly, felt like an hour. I really enjoyed it. So thanks very much for having me, guys.
Very nice of you to say, David.
That's
Very
why
nice.
I
Love
had to
hearing that.
apologise for talking too much. I went, Jesus Christ, we've been 2 hours. 2 hours. I probably shouldn't have.
I think we went really long on the right people, though. I think the people that we rushed through were the people we should have rushed through, and the people that we didn't rush through were the people that we probably shouldn't have rushed through. I think we handled it professionally. And one person in particular said that we handled it very objectively, which I love to hear as well. Don't get that too often, so I'd love hearing that. But everybody, do hit that sub button to Let's Talk Spurs, especially Kieran is making a big comeback this summer. So I do want the Harris Army to show him the support he deserves. We do have stuff coming up on the Irish Hotspur, but we also have a show coming up on Three Spurs Boys. Bobby K in the chat, as you know him. Do stay tuned over there. We will be putting that in the community section, so stay tuned over there, everybody. Hit that like button on your way out. And as always, everybody, come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
And in Conte we trust.
Come on, you Spurs. Woo! In Conte we trust. Love Harry.